Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the 271st edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host, Steve Wellings, and joining me this evening on the call, a packed panel. We've got Adam Smido-Smith, we've got Dom Henry, we've got Donny Baseball, Andy Patterson, Gabe Lewis has just jumped on, and also Joe O'Neill, assistant editor over at irishboxing.com, is with us to talk about the first fight that we're going to get straight into. That's Frampton against Donaire. We've also got Broner later on, a bit of Charlo, a bit of Gervonta Davis. There was lots of things going on over the weekend. I haven't seen any of the Khan card. Hopefully Smido or somebody else will have seen that and will be able to fill me in. And then next week, we've got a bit of Danny Jacobs, Jesse Magdalena, all sorts of things. And then obviously Belly of the Week to close us out at the end of the show. Let's get straight on with this Frampton card then. Frampton scoring against Donaire. We've got 117, 111 across the board. I also scored at 117, 111. I gave Donaire, off the top of my head, I think it was the 1st, the 11th and the 12th. I don't know if you were scoring it from ringside, Andy. I don't know how many people you were seeing in that ring. There were only 3, let me inform you. I know you're a little bit worse for wear. No doubt you all regale us with tales from the weekend. Tell me about the fight, first of all. Frampton thought he boxed quite well, quite neatly. He managed to take down Donaire's weapons, especially the left hook for the most part. He was a little bit hurt towards the end, but I thought he did a pretty decent job. Where do you sit, Andy? Decent job for Frampton? Poor job? What's the verdict?
I thought it was a good performance. I thought I don't know if he's been working on his foot movement. His foot movement was really good last night. Good jab, right hand. He stepped in sometimes. Again, I've not watched the fight back, so I'm going purely off a hazy memory here. But sometimes I thought he maybe held his feet slightly too long. I think that's what happened in the 11th round, and he got really badly hurt. He took it well though. We did think last week he was going to, I thought he was going to get dropped anyway. I did think he maybe dropped the right hand. The left hook would land at some point. He did land a few times, Donaire. Maybe obviously he's not what he is. He's past his best fighting weight, and I know it's getting passed about. And he was asked there last night, Donaire, and that if he's past it and that. I wouldn't say he's washed as such, but we've seen him far better. But I thought it was a good performance. Disciplined. Stuck to the game plan, whatever the game plan was. If that was the game plan that he showed there last night, then he stuck to it. It was really well done. Great atmosphere. Glad I got to Belfast this time. I actually got to sample the atmosphere and just go to a fight for a change rather than sit in the pub all day like I did on Friday. I mean, I'm not getting into the details of that at the minute. I mean, by fucking Christ, I've lost time in my life. I think I've lost about 6 hours of my life on Friday or something. I just can't figure out what happened, but there's server. But a lot of dead bodies at the airport. A lot of broken bodies as well on Twitter and on the WhatsApp chats and stuff like that. So I'll open up to someone else to kind of chat about it in more kind of detail because I'm kind of struggling at the minute, mate.
Just regarding Frampton's footwork, Andy mentioned it there. I think he's qualities. His footwork has always been excellent. His ability to judge distance and range has been a real quality of Frampton throughout his career. So it was on point on Saturday night. And people might not have seen Donaire up close and personal. We did as he was coming to the press conference afterwards, wandering around the corridors. He looked a mess. Not only his eye, which was starting to blemish underneath around the left cheekbone from early on, but also his lips. They look like they've been sliced with a cheese slicer.
What happened there? Because we seen when he walked past you and he was pointing to his lips. Did he like have a broken tooth or something?
He was very respectful, and he was saying Frampton's a great fighter. I gave it my all. He was very good, and I can't remember exactly what he's saying, but he was talking to us, but it was more sound bites. But it was just his lips looked absolutely terrible. He was smashed up.
Well, I remember. I think it was about the first round. Actually, I kind of noticed that maybe the end of the first, certainly the start of the second. Anyway, it looked like there was something wrong with the eye, and it wasn't until roughly about the third round and that I had to kind of look at the kind of TV in between rounds to try and get a good look at it. So it was quite early on that eye got badly damaged.
Yeah. Not many haters about. Hater Dave Lowback isn't with us, but Donny in the chat last night, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up. You weren't too complimentary, if I remember correctly. It could have been the fact that it was 2 o'clock in the morning, but I don't think that you were too fussed on the performance. Did you say that both guys are done, or was I reading that incorrectly, Donny?
No, I mean, I didn't say both guys are done. To me, I'll be honest. I started out as being a fan of Frampton. I slowly became, I guess, maybe not a hater, but I mean, because I think he's a genuinely nice person, and that comes through in the interviews that I've seen with him. But the way that he ducked Rigo in his prime always really turned me off to him. And I always thought, well, all right, maybe after Quigg he'll fight him, or maybe this. But then, he just never did. And by contrast, here you have Donaire, who was pound for pound. Back in the day, people were talking about him going up, cleaning out 122 after Rigondeaux, then cleaning out 126. How high could he go? Could he win a title at 135 maybe someday? I mean, like, the sky was the limit. And he was nearing the top of the pound for pound list, and he took a fight that there was no real mandate to take. He took a balls out risk in fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux, and it ruined his career. Right? I mean, he's never been the same after that fight. There's no debate about it. Literally, that fight took his soul. So last night, what you had was a fight between a guy who cowardly ducked Rigo and was, preserved by avoiding that beating, was, rewarded for that. And a guy who took the challenge and took the risk and had his career ruined by it. And so last night, seeing Frampton beat up on, this clearly depleted version of Donaire, to me was like seeing the bad guys win. It was like seeing, somebody profit off of a crime, the crime of ducking, right? He ducked him and it worked out for him, and it actually benefited him, and it totally ruined Donaire. So I was rooting for Donaire. But I mean, it was to me, it was very clear that Donaire was totally gone. I mean, the only thing he did have was that left hook, because of course the power is the last thing to go on any fighter. And he did hit him with that, and also maybe like a half left hook, half uppercut a few times that stunned him. But of course, Frampton is, I mean, he's a good fighter. He's not, in my opinion, he's not a great fighter, but he's a good fighter. And, he has the skills and certainly the athleticism to execute a game plan against the guy in there who really, in my opinion, like I said, was clearly depleted. So, every time he did get on those couple of occasions where he did get buzzed with the left hook or the left uppercut, he was able to smother, get out of trouble. He's got good footwork and good lateral movement. He was able to stay away from Donaire. But the thing is also is that Donaire clearly had something missing there last night too, because when he knew he was down on the cards, I think like old Nonita Donaire would have gone for it at least. Like he would have at least tried to try to pull this, this victory out
in
of
the 11th round and the 12th round. He did.
Yeah, well, it took him until that long though, and he had probably lost at least 5, if not 6, of the first 6 rounds. And in rounds 7, 8, 9, 10, in like the first minute of the 11th. Oh, excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry. In the first 7, 8, 9, 10, he didn't do that. He was content to just stand there and sort of give away rounds, let Frampton come in, come out, take a few, give him a few punches and then get out of there. I mean, he executed a very good game plan that I think, quite frankly, many, reasonably good fighters could have executed against that version of Donaire. So, I mean, was it a good performance? Yes, but to me, it didn't tell me anything about Frampton that I didn't already know. Next to talking about Selby, Warrington, or I forget who else, the other person, maybe it was the guy from Mexico, Valdez, that was in the and I mean, to me, right now, even like, Rigo coming off of the embarrassing quit and probably being well into his 40s, I mean, I still think he's a more dangerous fighter than all of those guys. And they won't fight him because there's no money. And I mean, Frampton right now, in my opinion, is on his retirement tour. And he's going to try to make a few big domestic fights, build him up, get a few paydays. I mean, I think his best days are behind him. And this win against Donaire, frankly, doesn't do a lot for me. And, I guess that's all I can say about it.
That's okay, Donny. You've said enough. Donny's made his feelings known, everybody. If you disagree with him, hit me up and come on, by all means. We love a good debate. Fair play, Donny. You've said your piece. Talking about the next fight, actually, Rio Tonka sent in a question. He said, any inside news on Frampton's next move? From Warren's interview, it sounded like he wants the Selby-Warrington winner. Well, that's what he was talking about afterwards in the press conference. It makes sense, doesn't it? I was talking to Jamie Sanigar during the week, and he said they've got absolutely no problem bringing Selby over if he were to beat Warrington. Now, I don't think that's any foregone conclusion. I know people laugh at me, but I think Warrington's going to give Selby a pretty good fight. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Oscar Valdez, will he move up? He's got a broken jaw. He is the WBO champion. Frampton now has this interim title. If Valdez disappears, then Frampton could fight maybe a contender, maybe someone like a Mark Magsayo or somebody. I was talking to Dominic about this last night, but it's going to be Windsor Park in August, as far as we know. That's what Frank's saying anyway. And I imagine it'll be against the winner of Selby Warrington, which we all expect to be Selby. If anybody has any other thoughts or feelings on that, let me know. Moving on, I mentioned we have Joe O'Neill on the call. It's good to have you, Joe. Just before we go on to the fight itself, just talking about press passes and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not going to put you in a position where you have to give opinions on the whole thing, but just tell me the facts, because you were tweeting out about you weren't going to get press pass. Then all of a sudden, Frank said there looked like a chance that you guys were going to be able to come. In the end, obviously, you weren't there. Top Rank don't seem to have a problem. There's no ban here, they say. Just closer to home, Joe, what was the situation, factually speaking? What did they say to you about not getting in last night?
Hi guys. Anyways, we applied like everyone else, and sort of got the feeling that we weren't going to be getting it. I came up to Belfast on Wednesday for the press conference. Obviously, with the ban, I couldn't actually talk to any of the fighters, but I was able to talk to Warren, and so I sort of put Warren on the spot about it, and I tweeted out then him saying that there was no ban whatsoever, and that that we would be credited as normal. But then heard nothing that day or the day after. Sent a follow-up email to Frank Warren, and it was just ignored pretty much, and just it went by and nothing happened, and that's pretty much it.
That's all we can say about that, and we'll move on to the fight itself. You happy enough with the scores? 117, 111 across the board, Joe. Was that a fair, accurate reflection of the fight?
Yeah, that's exactly how I had it as well. And I was almost same as yourself. I think I gave Donaire the first and the 11th, and then another one of the rounds. I think I gave Frampton the 12th though, because he finished very strong. Yeah, like past it's very strong to say about Donaire, but like he obviously isn't where he was a few years ago. Actually, but I thought the 11th round was, without going too gushy here, the 11th round was sort of beautiful. The way that Donaire, it was just like it was almost like a last stand. Did you get that feeling ringside?
He rolled back the years almost. I thought his punches were flowing really nicely for the first time in the fight. Yeah,
it was Roy Jones and was it third fight with Tarver where he threw all the uppercut. It was just sort of like it seemed like that sort of like this. He was going for broke, and like he was too small at featherweight as well. I thought I think he didn't look that great at the weigh-in. He probably, like 122. He went back down, like he probably could pick up another belt, but he said himself afterwards that 126 is probably just a bridge too far for him. As far as Frampton goes, yeah, I know he said it was a slow enough pace fight, but like his tank looked okay in there. Like that seems to always be the question. There always seems to be extenuating circumstances. Like he was weight trained at 122, and the Garcia fight, he obviously didn't have the longest camp. But yeah, he seemed to go okay into the later rounds. As far as it goes for the next fight as well, I'd be very surprised if it is any of the three big names. If it's Warrington, Selby, or Valdez, I don't think it's going to be any of them. I think it's probably, like you mentioned there, and I think I've mentioned him in a couple of articles as well, Mark Magsayo. I have a feeling it's going to be him. I think that 12 weeks, like Valdez, broken jaw, I can't see Valdez coming back in time for late August. And if the IBF title fight at the end of May, like it'll be 12 weeks fight to fight, and like in modern boxing, like that is quite a short turnaround. And the way Warren likes to have his events announced months in advance, I can't imagine such a short turnaround, especially when he's trying to flog 20,000 tickets. If the fight's in any way heavy duty between Warrington and Selby, like they'll need more than 12 weeks. Like a 12-week camp is sort of a staple now for an elite fighter. So I can't see one of them wanting to win, then maybe take 2 or 3 weeks off to recover and then get back into camp quickly to go straight in. Like when I was talking to Warren on Wednesday, he actually said, I have it on record, that he was saying that he wants Warrington to win. But obviously, I know Selby's on a fight-to-fight deal with him, and Warrington is a proper Queensbury fighter, so he's gunning hard for Warrington to win. And he was saying a unification next year, that he wants Frampton to pick up the WBO. And if Valdez is out, like Frampton, I have a feeling is going to be elevated to WBO champion soon enough.
And then that's the fight for the WBO that will take place in Windsor. You think, like me, against someone like a Mag Sayo or someone similar?
Or Sakaria Lucas or something like that. Like, and it'll be technically a defense, but Frampton himself said he'd be treating it like a vacant title fight. But I have a feeling that's what it's going to be. I think the event sort of nature of a stadium fight, like tickets will sell well enough regardless.
Yeah, Frank said that. He said he thinks they're going to be 23 to 25,000 and he'll be able to pack it out. But they are making moves. And August the 18th, someone was mentioning. I think, I'm not sure if that's even a Saturday, but that's what someone said. But all those names you mentioned, I could see him going in against any of those. What about the undercard, Joe? Just in case we lose you, what took your fancy? Obviously, Keeler against Cummins flew in the face of what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I sort of people like that was actually a really interesting fight because both Keeler and Cummins are sort of they're fighters where you hear stories and you don't particularly see it in the ring. I was writing this beforehand that like Cummins from day one, we were being told about how he was performing brilliant in sparring against like John Ryder and Andy Lee and Billy Joe Saunders, but always in the ring he seemed either caught between two styles, or I know he suffers with confidence issues and all, but like under Jamie Murray, you were thinking maybe it'd finally click because he was an unbelievable amateur. He was one of the best amateur fighters to watch. And then with Keeler, every time like he has noted power, but every time he seemed to be starting to build a head of steam. Like he'd either break a hand or he'd have a shoulder injury. And then against Tom Doran, he knocked him down in the first round and then got cock hold himself. So his career had been really sort of stop-start. So you're going into it with a lot of unknowns. Like you couldn't have really picked definitively. You would have thought Cummins, just looking at him, he seems a bit bigger, and he sort of has that better amateur grounding. And I know Keeler was saying he was training full time, but compared to what Cummins is doing, I'd say like Cummins was a big 14-week camp or whatever and away in Tenerife and all the high tech sort of stuff. But what I think actually happened in the fight was Keeler, the second round, I feel Keeler won the fight in that round. He hurt Cummins a couple of times. He was goading him. He sort of just stamped his authority there, and he banked enough rounds after that. And then like he seriously needs to be commended for the 6th and 7th rounds, I think it was, when the blood around his eyes, like it was from watching on the TV, it was going directly into his eyes. Like
it was terrible. He got hit at one point, and the blood actually squirted out the eyelid.
And the way, from what I understand, he had a cut on either side, and one was ruled to have been from a punch, and one was ruled to have been from a clash of heads, even though they both seem to be from clash of heads. So I think they were wary of getting the ringside doctor involved, because it could either have been judged a TKO or a technical decision, depending on which cut he was calling it on. So they sort of soldiered on. They did fantastic work on his cut, and like, yeah, he really did deserve the win. I wonder, like, where Keeler goes next from now, just purely because he is Irish and he's not eligible for British titles and stuff like that. That are they going to try build him up through the WBO to have a potential opponent for Billy Joe? Because that was sort of last year. That was what Cummings's plan was, to sort of build himself up. The winner's going to go into the top 10, and like Billy Joe's probably going to need opponents after Murray, because if Golovkin and Canelo are going to go on September 15th, he might need someone to fit in there. And like when you look through the top 15, like there aren't that many big names for a Queensbury show. Like there's obviously talk of him going over to fight Danny Jacobs or whatever, but it's more than likely going to be a home show, and they're going to need someone. Keeler himself said that he probably needs one or two more, but you could see, like he even said before, that things move quickly, and oddly, that stuff you wouldn't expect. So, like, is Tommy Langford still with Warren?
I believe so, yeah. Although he beat Arnfield on wasn't that on an ITV show recently, I think?
Or Hobson show, I'm not even sure.
I think it was one of the World Boxing Super Series undercards, actually. Maybe Groves Eubank, possibly. So maybe he's a free agent now. I think Ozzy was talking about him before. I can't really remember, though. He might be split with Warren, actually. If anybody knows, hit me up on Twitter and let me know. I'm not 100% on that, Joe. But yeah, that's an option as well.
If they get Keeler a WBO, like someone like Langford, and have that fight high profile on, say, the Frampton undercard in Windsor, then like, for all intents and purposes, you have a potential opponent for Billy Joe for a voluntary defense, just while he's keeping busy and waiting for either Golovkin or Canelo to become free. Going further down the undercard, then you have what was the Upton and McKenna. How did you score that actually ringside? Just because it was very, just the commentary, it made it kind of hard to do because they sort of had Barry Jones had his script set out there that it was the activity against quality. What was it like?
We thought that Upton was doing well early on, but McKenna started to take over, and then the body shot sort of just narrowly swung the scores in his favour. And I wasn't arguing with the decision. I thought the scores were quite wide at 98-92 though.
Yeah, so did I as well. Upton said he came in with 4 weeks' notice, and he's saying, but to be honest, I think if you're keeping busy and you get 4 weeks' notice, like it's not really, it's too much time to prepare to argue that as a reason as to why you lost. Like I think McKenna did what he had to do there, and he's calling for Catrell now.
Yep, he was calling for O'Hara Davis as well, I think.
Davis as well, yeah. And to be honest, that's what 3 wins for him now live on either BT Sport or Box Nation. That whereas people may have scoffed when he was calling for that before the Sean Cray fight, like that, he'd be one of the better known light welters now in Frank's stable. Like, has Davis even fought under Warren yet?
No.
Oh, he hasn't. No. So I could see that fight happening quite soon as well. I know Catrell, they're trying to build. They're banking on Flanagan to beat Hooker, and then they want Catrell to be the first defense. But I can see McKenna and Davis fighting in a hashtag beef sort of fight soon enough in London. Or
yeah, I could definitely see that as well. We're hoping to get Catrell on the show at some point, so we'll definitely ask him about that. Joe, I know you're a busy man. I don't want to keep you for too long. Anything else from the weekend at all on this card or otherwise before we let you go?
Just if I could go on to Zolani Tete, actually, there's oh well, apart from the fight itself, like probably the less said the better. But just the situation with Burnett, it's an odd one that Warren and Queensbury and BT and John Rawling and Dev Sani and everyone seems to be very aggressively pursuing the Burnett fight. But Warren, in our interview on Wednesday, which I only published on Saturday afternoon, he pretty much dismissed the possibility of putting Tete into the World Boxing Super Series. He wants the fight to be made with Burnett independently, which I don't think anyone really agrees with that. Obviously, with the amount of money in the WBSS, that there probably could be more money made for it in there, and just those sort of format tournaments are reinvigorating boxing to a degree. And I was just a bit disappointed to hear that there's so much calling for it, and then when there's a platform offered, that they're sort of turning away from it there.
Yeah, we were talking about that at ringside as well. And, we thought that the platform would be made for the likes of Tete, but if Frank doesn't want to put him in, I suppose he doesn't want to put him in. Joe, appreciate you coming on at Joe_90 on Twitter. Isn't that right?
Bingo, yeah.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Joe. We'll speak to you again soon, no doubt.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
All the best. Thank you. Joe O'Neill there, assistant editor at irishboxing.com. Good guy, Joe. Been on the beat for a while now. Smido, you've been on the beat as well. I don't know if you were watching Khan last night or Dodd and Coyle and all those type of things, but did you manage to catch Frampton, Donaire?
Yeah. And I'll
go on, tell us what happened.
Well, I found it quite boring. I think I agree with much with what Donny said. Donaire, unfortunately, is a long way past his best. He's never really been a featherweight for my liking. He got shown up there by Walters and obviously has not really done that much since. I think Frampton's on a victory lap as well. I agree 100% with what Donny said there. After a bit, I just found it a little bit repetitive, really. Donaire was getting his face bashed in for 20 or 30 seconds every round. Frampton, the one thing you can credit him for is stuck to a game plan very well, and obviously it was extremely effective when it comes to the scorecards and the end results, so fair play in that. I just think we're missing a bit of the intensity from what we used to get from Frampton back when he was down at the lower weight. I'm obviously not comparing the opponents Martinez and Donaire, but it was a lot more intense against Martinez back in the day, and when he was scoring knockouts. And I remember that Canadian bloke came over and he battered him, that Molitor, and then Quigg as well. It felt a lot different. The Frampton that was fighting in them days to the one who's fighting now. Obviously, we know he's getting, he's the wrong side of 30, etc. He was humbled against Santa Cruz really in the second fight, which we all know did a lot of psychological damage to Frampton at the time, if not still now. I just one of them where you think, oh, it should have happened. Would have been a lot better if it had happened a few years ago at the lower weight class. I don't really know where Frampton goes from here. I think Oscar Valdez causes him all sorts of problems. I really do. I watched Valdez for the first time the other week. I thought.
Why does Frampton fancy that fight so much then, Adam? I'm not saying I disagree with you, but Frampton really seems to fancy that fight.
Yeah, fair enough. If he does, great, fair play to him. I mean, we want fights at that kind of. That kind of level of fighters not ducking each other. I don't know. Is the answer to that, Steve? I mean, he's there to be hit Valdez at times. But I just think the way Valdez variety and he jabs pretty well, digs to the body, awesome from what we saw in his last fight. I just think he's all wrong for this Frampton that we're seeing now. And that was all I thought of the fight, really, Steve. To be honest, it was just becoming repetitive towards the end, and I ended up looking at my phone. Did
you go back and watch a replay of Titi against Nuthouse, Smido?
Absolutely, 100% not. I had that on for about 3 rounds because I think after Khan finished in that whatever it was 1 or 2 rounds, I think Tete was in about the 3rd or 4th round, and the commentators were bored by that stage. And it was shocking. I compared it to Chief support that was Flanagan against Petrov about a year ago.
Box Nation favourite. If you want to see that against me, though, it's on Box Nation on a daily basis.
You know what about Box Nation, though, Steve? I'm thinking of packing in my subscription because I'm a massive casual at the minute. I'm like the most casual I've ever been. But I still watch a fair few fights. But what have we had from Box Nation this year? We've had maybe this is maybe our 3rd show. And we're halfway through April. If we're getting, even if it's 1 a month, if we're getting 1 a month for £12, is that a good value or not? I mean,
what about the international stuff?
The international hasn't been brilliant.
No,
we had the Herd the other week with that triple header. That was good, absolutely fair play, no problem. But we haven't been bowled over with international content. And Sky have upped their game somewhat on the international front. So I am genuinely questioning what I'm getting for my £12 a month.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that, Smido, because I was thinking that recently. I think there was a weekend where there was 2, maybe 3 American cards of really good quality, and Box Nation didn't pick any of them up. And I was thinking, what's going on? Like, so I can see what you're coming from there, Smido. So live on air, give us a decision, Smid. You cancelling it or not?
Oh, I'm not making rash decisions, Steve.
Come on, Smido, come on.
No, I'm not making rash decisions. I'll report back to you next week. My only problem is Racing UK, which is my other option if I didn't have Box Nation, is twice as much a month. It's £24 a month. So that's my problem.
Okay, we shall watch this situation with interest. We've got on the call Gabe, we've got Dave the Hater Lowback, we've got Dominic. I'm going to try and bring in a special guest very shortly. As I do so, Dave the Hater, tell me about what is it called? The Jack-Off? Isn't that what you call him? What did you make of last night's performance?
Yeah, he looked all right. He looked pretty good, I guess. I didn't like any of the boxing this weekend. I thought it was all pointless. Most of the matchups were, I guess they went pretty much exactly as they were predicted to go. So was not interested really. Nothing surprised us. No one upset the odds. Nobody really came out of their shell and showed us something we didn't know about them. Just a boring weekend of boxing, to be honest. Even though there were a bunch of fights and some names involved. Yeah, I don't really care. I think that Frampton beats Valdez, honestly, because Valdez to me didn't look great against Quigg. He should have looked better in that fight. Should have stopped Quigg. Probably the best performance of the weekend was Jamal Charlo for me. The Donaire Frampton fight was just not really worth watching. It was just same thing round after round. Donaire doing the same shit, looking shot like he has done for quite a while now. And even though he shot Frampton still fights him instead of Rigondeaux because he's still on the avoidance train. And I didn't like either how the Irish casual fans all booed Donaire because clearly they don't know how great he was. I bet they never even heard of him before. Fuck the Irish fans.
You're fucking raging, eh?
Yeah, but he rages in a way that like sounds like Stephen Wright sometimes. Like he's very subdued about it.
It wasn't a good weekend of boxing. I was disappointed.
It's a good weekend's drinking, though, for what I remember.
You had the fear, did you?
Oh, you fucker, man. Listen, Stephen, I put out a week and we'll quite say rest in peace to Mark McFarlane, but that guy's gonna be close to death the next week or so. Like, holy fuck, that man's a mission and a half. That one.
Hopefully he picks it up. Okay, right, guys, we've got our first guest on of the evening. Delighted to have Jerry Belmontes with us. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing great.
Excellent stuff, Jerry. I believe you're on the comeback trail. What's the story? When are you going to be back in the ring?
Comeback fight is July 7th. We'll be here in my hometown, Corpus Christi. Looking to fight some guy from Mexico who's 18 and 15. Guy came down from 160 to 135. Trying to come back at 126, actually. This is my first fight at 135, and then I'm going to go down to 130 and then go down to 126.
Ah, that's quite the drop then, because didn't you campaign at 135 during your career so far?
Yes. Actually, I started my career at 122. I started my career at 122 and then just went up from there and had a world title fight at 135.
So we're thinking coming back at 135, going down in weight. Have you got any short-term or long-term targets for the comeback? What are you looking at?
I'm looking for a long-term. I think I still got more than 6 more years in me. So hopefully everything works out perfectly.
Just looking at your record, Jerry, you've had 31 fights so far. You're 21 and 10, but you've had a lot of tough fights over the years. I mean, out of the 10 losses, are there any ones that you would dispute in particular?
Actually, I think I like to fight all of them again because, I mean, honestly, at that point in my time in my career, I wasn't really focused. Going to training camp, weighing 160, had to drop down to 135, and two to 3 weeks. Just stuff like that. Wasn't really training the way I need to train.
I was thinking back to a fight I remember you in, and that was in 2014 against Omar Figueroa. You lost a split decision for the WBC lightweight title. One of the judges gave it to you, and obviously the other two gave it to Figueroa. You were doing really well early on in that fight. What do you remember about that one?
I remember I outboxed him. I made him look like an amateur. I made him look like he didn't know what he was doing in the ring. I remember everything clearly. I fought that guy so many times in amateurs. I've known him since we were little, so I knew what he was going to bring to the table. I mean, I know he's older now, but he still fights the same. He still fights the same way. So I knew that I was just going to come on top. But I mean, unfortunately, the judges had it different.
Yeah, Figueroa's gone off the rails a bit lately. He was supposed to fight Broner. He's had a few personal problems. Would that be a rematch you would be definitely striving for in the future, if possible?
Oh, yes, for sure. I mean, if I could get a rematch with Omar at 140, oh, for sure, I'll stay at 140. And I guarantee you I'll win either with the TKO or a late stoppage.
Whenever you come back, Jerry, who are you going to be training with and where are you going to be based?
Well, I'm still based here in Corpus Christi. Still training here. I'm training with my dad. Me and my dad, we had a talk about it, and I told him, like, hey, you can't treat me like I'm your son. Like, push that aside and treat me like I'm your fighter. Not just your son, but your fighter. Like, I want to be your fighter when training, not your son. So we had this talk, and everything seems pretty good now.
You feel like you're in a good place at the moment?
Yes, I am. I really do. We've been training for 2 weeks, and honestly, for these past 2 weeks, it's been the hardest training I've ever had in my whole entire career.
Just to remind our listeners, we have Jerry Belmontes on the call. He's the Corpus Christi kid. He's making a comeback in July, so keep an eye out for that. Just a couple of other fights in the past, just looking back at your fight in 2013 against Francisco Vargas, who was undefeated at the time. That was a 10-rounder at super featherweight. What do you remember about that one, Jerry?
That one, man, you know, I was pretty nervous because I heard a lot of good things about him. Heard he had a lot of power, so I really wanted to test it out. His power, and I mean, he has some decent power. But man, I wasn't focused. I just was not focused at all. I just kept thinking about, I don't know, as personal stuff, just personal stuff, and I wasn't really concentrating on the fight. I'm pretty sure if I would have concentrated, and I would outbox him, for sure.
And they deducted a point off you as well for a low blow in that one. Fair decision, or?
Yeah, they took a point off me for a low blow, but I mean, whenever I would duck and throw, he would put my head down, so it was an accident. It wasn't intentional.
If anybody on the panel has any questions for Jerry, then hit me up and we'll ask them to him. Have you got any social media presence that you want to give a plug to, Jerry?
Oh, I'm just on Twitter at Jerry Belmontes, and on Facebook, Jerry Belmontes. Follow me, and you'll get all the scoops on what's next after this fight.
Good stuff. We've got Gabe Lewis on the call. Gabe, do you want to ask Jerry any questions?
Yeah, Jerry, we've had a few chances to communicate a little bit. I've always been a huge supporter. I'm also from Texas. You know, I think my question is, what is it like for you being training with your dad that you think, you know, maybe this time?
Okay, Jerry, I'll hear Gabe's question and I'll relay it to you, Jerry. Go ahead, Gabe.
I'd like to get his take on if he thought that training with his dad the first time was different than how it's going to be this time, and what exactly, if any, changes he's looking to make technique-wise or style-wise.
Yeah, Jerry, Gabe's just asking a question about training with your father. He says, how is it going to be any different this time from last time training with your dad, technique-wise and style-wise and all those type of things?
Well, I told him we should go back to doing what we used to do in amateurs. What got us looked at Top Rank, got us signed by Top Rank, got us signed by all the main people, was going back to using speed and using angles. We started, in the middle of our career, we started listening to what the people had to say. Like, oh, you need to sit down your punches, you need power, you need this. Like, no, like, we don't need that. Speed, power comes with speed. So this is what we're going to start doing.
Texas is obviously a big place, Jerry, but I know you've got the likes of Ronnie Shield over at the Plex Gym and that type of stuff. Do you ever get about sparring? Who are some of the better guys you've sparred with over the years?
Sorry?
Who are some of the better guys that you've sparred with over the years? Some of the more notable sparring partners you've had?
Rocky Wattis, when he was in the fight, was it Chris John?
Yes, yes.
I drove up there for 8 weeks, sparred with him. Then, man, you know, it's pretty funny because I actually really hurt Rocky Wattis with a body shot during that training camp.
Just the final couple of questions, Jerry, and we do thank you for jumping on with us this evening. Boxing's obviously a dirty business. Is there anything you can tell us about the darker sides of the sport? Anything that's been done over you over the years that you could talk about?
I'm sorry?
Boxing's quite a dirty business. Is there anything over the years where people have put one over on you that you could talk about, or any issues, you know, the dirty side of the sport?
No, I mean, I don't got no issues about this. About it. No one's ever came up to me or anything about it, so I got nothing to say.
No problem. And your comeback fight, when are the tickets on sale and how can the listeners get them?
Oh, well, it's not going to be televised or anything, but I'm pretty sure people will go live on it on Facebook. They'll tag me on it. Like I said, just follow me on Facebook and you can see it there, July 7th.
July 7th, brilliant. Jerry, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you joining us and best of luck in your comeback.
Thank you.
All the best. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Jerry Belmontes there. Clash of Cultures, Wolverhampton versus Texas. We managed to get the questions over as best we could. Andy, in the end.
What weight did he say he was going to do it again?
he said he was going to come back at lightweight, then he was going to go down to super featherweight, then he was going to go down again to the weight he started at. But he also said he wanted to fight Figueroa in a rematch at 140.
Well, can I say, I didn't want to say him because obviously my voice is a bit knackered, but he threw away that Figueroa fight, if I recall correctly. He seemed to be kind of either bossing it or kind of semi-dominating it early doors, and then just kind of faded toward the end.
Yeah, that's why I said to him about him starting off strongly, Donny, but I can't remember how it ended now.
I actually, tell you the truth, I don't remember the exact ebb and flow and who took what rounds, but I do remember this. Andy and I had both watched that fight, and we both had thought Belmontes had won. I don't know what episode it was, but obviously it must have been early on because it was 2014. So, and I think I remember saying something. It was right. It was shortly after Heyman had launched the PBC initiative in late 2013, and I was saying, it's kind of funny. It always seems like every time there's a close fight, it's never the guy who's not supposed to win who gets the nod. Right, it's always the guy who has been set up to win that gets the benefit of the doubt, and I thought Belmontes won that fight, and I think I remember Andy being very strongly of the same opinion.
I'm looking at the cards here now, Donnie. So he won one card 115, 113, but lost the other two, 116, 112, and then 118, 110.
Yeah, I think that was the thing
that was the issue. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always the one card that just way the hell off. Yeah, and that was if anything, you could say it was a close fight, but and that would have really changed. It would have been a life-changing event for him. That was a world title fight, I believe. So,
he's a good fighter. If you look down his record, he's always gone the distance. With all the guys that he's fought, I think he's only been stopped once in his career. He is a tough dude.
Yeah, but it's funny though. Those like, you see one of those terrible cards like 118, 110 for the the wrong, if not the wrong way, but at least it's it's totally one-sided like that. That has real effect on people's lives, and people forget that. We always hate when fighters really bitch about the breaks not going their way in the sport and things like that. But really though, if you think about it, they kind of have good cause to, because that means those sorts of terrible decisions can mean a lot of money to them, and can impact their livelihoods.
Yeah, out of 10 losses, the only time that Jerry was stopped, Gabe, was in 2015 by Jason Souza in the first round. So that might indicate that he was sort of caught cold.
I think that he broke his ankle in that fight.
Okay.
I think. Sorry, I thought my computer froze for a second there.
No, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I think that was the fight that he broke his ankle in. There was a fight, and that may not have been the one. It may have been a different one. I'm looking at. I feel pretty confident that was the one it was in. I watched him just about every time I could catch him on TV. After the Figueroa fight, which I still adamantly 100,000% believe that he won that fight. It was a close fight, so I could have seen, if somebody had a draw, but there was no way he lost that fight. You'll never convince me otherwise. Even though there was some points in the fight that he took some rounds off, but I don't think they scored fucking body punching, just like last night with Jesse Vargas. I don't think they fought very well either. To me, I think that's one thing that I specifically remember was some of the body punching that Figueroa, Jerry was doing. They didn't score well, but I'm adamant they won that fight. And then I think that fight against Sosa was where he broke his ankle. I think you could see from the earlier fights on compared to the later fights that there was a little bit of a lack of focus. He wasn't throwing as much as a lot of people thought that he would or should, like volume-wise, because I think part of what he, the style that I had seen him, work with was kind of a catch and shoot, counter punching style. He's not one of those guys that's always gonna, try to be first. He's gonna look for openings and use that sort of style as compared to the stuff that he was doing later. He was waiting too much, waiting too long, in my estimation. And then, like he said, you could see that he was just seemed unfocused, because at his best, early on, he always seemed to me to have a good set of skills that could trouble anybody. And then it just kind of faded the closer he got to the end before that break that he took. I'm super excited to see him back. Of course, I think part of what I have to think about whenever I'm reviewing his fights is that, of course I'm going to get wound up. That's one of my guys, so I may be a little bit biased on that stuff, but it was always great to watch, always a great watch. And I think it's great that he's coming back, and I'm definitely going to be down in Corpus. So I'll give you guys a full read out of what happens whenever that goes down.
Thanks, Gabe. We look forward to that. Thank you for endorsing Jerry. Yep, he seemed like a good guy. Rapping Rob Kelly's jumped on the call. Before we come to you, Rob, Dominic, you were ringside last night, hurling abuse, heckling Ron McIntosh, nearly thrown out at various occasions. Tell me about Frampton, Donaire, and anything off the undercard that excited you, Dominic.
You're going to get me a bad reputation, Steve. Well, I disagree with what. Actually, I agree and disagree with what Donnie and Smitho were saying. I mean, I do agree that Donaire is well past his best. I mean, he's lost to a lot of guys over the last few years, and but I do think he's still dangerous. And I don't agree that Frampton is on a retirement tour. I think that's very wide of the mark. I was unsure myself until last night, but I do believe if he fought Valdez, he would beat him. I disagree completely with Smitho. I think the actual opposite to what Smitho was saying. I think Valdez is more made for Frampton than the other way around. And the question really is just whether, I think Joe O'Neill was spot on with everything he said about the difficulties of getting either Valdez, Selby, or Warrington for that fight in the middle of August at Windsor Park, because firstly for Valdez, is he going to be recovered from that injury? If even aside from that, is he going to move up to super feather? Say if he does recover from the injury and he stays at featherweight, are Top Rank going to sort of agree to send him over to Northern Ireland to fight in Frampton's backyard? It's going to take a hell of a lot of money, and we've seen with Top Rank, their track record is they only really send their big guys over to foreign fighters' backyard if they're a mandatory challenger, like when Terence Crawford was mandatory to Ricky Burns. Things like that. So apart from Terence Crawford and Lomachenko, Valdez is one of Top Rank's leading lights. So it's going to take, even if he recovers from this injury and he stays at the weight, it's going to take a serious amount of money, perhaps a pay-per-view event on BT Sport to attract him over. But I would love to see that fight. I think it's the best. I think it's probably the most attractive fight style-wise that can be made in the division at the minute, and I think Frampton would beat him on points. But I think it's I'm biased because I'm a Frampton fan, but I agree that he ducked Rigondo, and that's his true statement. But I think to say that he's on a retirement tour and that he was sort of profiting last night from having ducked Rigondo, as Donnie says, it's a bit stupid, but
do you think, Dominic, he was at one point on a retirement from a certain individual and organisation tour?
Yes, I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head there, Steve. I think that was his mindset this time last year, because from what we and you both know, Steve, Frampton knew things that the broader public didn't know, and this was colouring his mindset and affecting how you approach training, how you approached the preparation for fights. Now, I do agree with what Donnie and Adam Smith said, that Donaire is definitely a long way past his best, but he's still a dangerous fighter, and you can see that he carried his power. He was dangerous with a punching power right to the end, and it wasn't just the left hook he was looking for. He was looking for that slip right hand, that double jab right hand. He was looking for that. He did catch Carl with a few meaty looking uppercuts on the inside, but the one thing that you were talking about Carl's footwork earlier, and what are you saying about me in the chat there, Steve? Donna's going to go in on Barry. Do you mean Barry Jones or Barry McGuire?
Are you going to go in on Big Barry?
Go and do it, mate.
Barry who?
Barry, who? Just to add to your point, mate. The other thing as well is Selby Warren. You got to hope that the winner of this fight doesn't come out injured or by a cut or a broken hand, because that's going to push back the fight for August as well.
Andy, even if see that Selby Wharton fight, right? That fight is going to points. I don't care what anyone says. Neither of those guys are noted punchers. Selby hasn't done any once since Stephen Smith. That fight, whoever wins it, I think Selby probably win it. But even if someone won that fight, just for argument's sake, in theory, if one of those guys knocked the other out in the first round, they would basically have to go straight back into camp, to be ready for the middle of August to fight Frampton at Windsor Park. And
same for Carroll, though, isn't it? It's the same for him as well.
It's the same for Carl, but they would have to negotiate. They would have to, in the modern, Joe Neal was right. In modern boxing, the amount of time it takes to negotiate these fights, it wouldn't be simple. It wouldn't be like a straightforward deal, and then the time it takes to promote a fight, it's just totally unrealistic to expect. I think there's no chance that it would be Selby or Warrington for the middle of August for Frampton. It's either going to be Valdez, if all those conditions that I mentioned earlier are met, or this other Filipino kid, Magsayo. I can't think of anyone else who it could possibly be. But what I would say is about Frampton, his footwork, the guys we were saying earlier, one of the things that I was very concerned about after the Garcia fight was that Carl it looked as if he had lost that sort of brilliant footwork, that sort of spring in his step, and the ability to that step back, that really good step back that he has, that just takes him out of punching range and gets him back into punching range when he needs to be in punching range. And I thought that was back last night. That was one of the things that I was looking for. And I think that all goes back to before the Garcia fight. It was a very truncated training camp. There was a lot of things going on in the background with the split from the McGuigans. And I also felt that this is a superficial thing, but I missed the weigh-in on Friday. But when I saw the pictures, it was the best I thought Carl looked on the scales for 3 or 4 fights. Whereas in the Garcia fight, I felt once he had rehydrated, I thought he didn't look great in the flesh during the Horacio Garcia fight. I was worried about his. Those are only superficial pointers that they don't really tell you. Someone can look brilliant in the flesh, and then, as Big Tony Bellew was saying, always likes to say, I'm not body beautiful, but I can fight. It's not always, you can't always tell by how a fighter looks in the flesh. But I thought Carl's footwork was a lot sharper last night, and what I was happy about as well was that in the Garcia fight they were trying all this silly stuff, which Carl, it's just not Carl's game. Like, he was sort of voluntarily retreating to the ropes with his back to the ropes and allowing Garcia almost like doing a James DeGale, and allowing they were trying to carry out stuff that they'd done in the training camp for the Garcia fight, like working off the ropes. But what they did in this fight, they didn't do that. They actually reversed it. They drove, instead of allowing Donaire to drive Frampton to the ropes like Garcia did, Carl tried to drive Donaire back to the ropes. So he was either, as Carl said last night after the fight, he was either boxing him at range with a jab or boxing him very, very close. He wasn't in that middle. He wasn't in that middle distance, which can be dangerous against a puncher like Donaire. And he also, he wasn't allowing himself to be pushed to the ropes himself. He was pushing Donaire to the ropes, and when he was at the ropes, he was staying right on top of him. He was staying as close to him as he possibly can. Now he still got clipped with a few heavy looking uppercuts by Donaire on the inside, but I thought he took the shots well, and in general I thought it was a step in the right direction, as opposed to a sign of a fighter whose best days are behind him. So I do think I was in two minds before last night, but I think now, if the Valdez fight was made, I think he would beat him in a very competitive fight on points. But I think it's unfair to say that he's past his best or anything.
Dominic, I know you got a 4 a.m. start, so give me a brief rundown of what took your interest on the undercard before we let you go.
Yeah, I think I don't really want to say anything about the Teddy fight itself, similar to the other guys, but I do think I agree with what I don't know who was saying it earlier. I think it might have been Joe Neal as well. He was saying, and it's something that I've noticed in recent months, any time Teddy's been fighting. But the BT Sport guys like John Rolling, they really are aggressively pushing this agenda that Teddy is the man at bantamweight, and that Ryan Burnett isn't on the same level and all this here. But
they gave him the big build up this time. They went over to South Africa and everything and done a load of filming and that. You know, they really wanted to push Tete. So for him to put that performance in afterwards was a bit of a kick in the balls, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And in fairness, I tried to record the fight last night and it didn't actually work, so I haven't seen any of the action back. But I did see on that BT Sport filter thing that they do, it's like a wee 10-minute clip on YouTube. I saw a clip of what Bunks and people like that were saying after the Teddy fight, and in fairness, they did say once Teddy realised that Narvaez wasn't even trying to throw a punch, he should really have tried to open up and take a few chances, but he just didn't take any chance at all. It was a, dare I say, it was a Cuban-style performance. That's about as scathing as it can be. It was a way like one of these Cuban fights, like Lara or not Lara, but that guy. Rances Bartholomew. It was like something like one of those guys would fight. It was awful, but I think what it does is, in a roundabout way, I think I mentioned to you that last night, it may actually work in a different way, that it may actually increase the pressure on Burnett or the people who are making the decisions for Burnett to take the fight, because people will turn around and say, well, Teddy didn't look this flipping, he didn't look like this sort of this really menacing, unbeatable fighter last night. So what it's sort of, you know, people will say, why, if you are avoiding him, why are you avoiding him? But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in terms of Super 6, whether Frank allows Teddy to go into it. I mean, if these stories are true, Steve, that Frank is reluctant to allow Teddy to fight Burnett in the Super 6, that's just typical Frank shooting himself in the foot. This is why we need Kurt on to sort of talk about this, because Kurt is the best at sort of nailing Frank when Frank behaves like this. He just shoots himself in the foot and behaves like a curmudgeon, just trying to disrupt things that would be good for the sport, because they won't benefit him as much if it was him promoting the fight totally off his own back. But just in terms of the Cummings one as well, Cummings had a tough night, and I don't want to see him taking. I wouldn't let. All I saw last night was him walking forward with his hands up and taking too much, and I don't like to see him. He's still a pretty young guy. I don't want to see him taking punches just for the sake of it. I mean, I don't think he entered the sport to be a journeyman, so be interesting to see what happens there as well. But I think Frampton's got a bit left to give. I was in two minds before last night, but I think he's made the Valdez fight something that I would really like to see.
Excellent summary as always, Dominic. Thank you for coming on. We'll catch you again in future weeks, no doubt. Cheers.
Take care, Steve.
All the best. Bye. Okay, Rob Kelly, just on Cummings, you don't have to comment on this, but I took an L here. I thought that it would end up in a firefight with Keeler, and Keeler would end up getting knocked out, being too brave for his own good in about 4 or 5 rounds. But Cummings showed the deficiencies that we know he's always had. You know, he's too square on. His head wasn't moving at all, no jab whatsoever. He looked, like Dominic says, there was a bit of shot in him there. Maybe he should hang them up. Where's he going to go? Is he even going to win a British title? I don't know, Rob. So many questions for you. Tell me about Frampton. Not a negative as such, but I did think at times last night he maybe stayed in the pocket a little bit too long without throwing. You know, he had the hands cupped up, and that gave Donaire a chance to throw the left hook, particularly to the body. Maybe it was something they were working on, Rob. Maybe he didn't even notice it. Tell me about the Frampton-Donaire fight and anything off the undercard. Rob, you with us? Maybe not. What about you, Andy? What was this thing that was going around on Twitter about the Cummings-Keeler fight? Do you want to fill us in?
It was just some comments I've seen on Twitter. Apparently, there was a lot of money going on a third-round knockout. Seemed to be a lot of money going on Luke Keeler to knock out Conor Cummins. Says the fix was in and betting to be suspended. Some commission had been involved in that as well. I didn't believe it. Like, I mean, I know guys who know Conrad, and he says, look, he's not going to in them. And as I say, I did watch that fight very closely, and there was nothing whatsoever. I mean, obviously the first 2-3 rounds and that, I kind of really did keep a close eye on it, and there was nothing untoward there that I could see. I really did enjoy that fight, actually. At one point I thought Keeler was actually going to gas, and it looked like it. At one point he had 2 bad cuts across both eyes. It was looking like at one point that maybe Conrad might just end up walking him down, but I don't think Conrad actually showed a lot of kind of variety. I thought Keeler just showed he was slightly kind of a level above him. He did seem to find a kind of second wind about the 7th or 8th round, I think, and maybe in the end that's he's won the fight. But I think I thought the cards were slightly closer, especially kind of middle half of the fight. I thought Conrad started coming into it a little bit more, kind of forcing his will a little bit, putting Keeler on the back foot. But you could just see the kind of classier shots of Keeler and that. So I've got absolutely no dispute about the winner. Keeler's a worthy winner. But one thing I would say is, I don't know if it's just playing the crowd there. He was obviously calling Conrad in to fight him first 2-3 rounds and that. And then obviously he was kind of like blown a little bit, so he kind of cut that up. But you could see it with Keeler. He wasn't coming forward as much, and especially kind of middle half of the fight. But no, I got to hand it to him. He dug in, bad cuts. I don't know what you thought, Steve, but I seen the corner holding the towel, and I was like, no, that's not going. They're surely not going to throw the towel in, because if that fight was going to get stopped, it went to the cards, and surely they'd won it on points, no problem. Because it was a clash of heads, wasn't it? I think the cut.
Well, as Joe was saying, I think they ruled one a clash of heads and one a punch.
So you would think they would take that to the cards then, basically, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they get TKO'd for that? So I don't know if you noticed, but I did see his team standing with the towel in the hand. I was thinking to myself, they're not going to stop this fight, surely to Christ, because he's in front here, and I'm glad they didn't, because he figured it out in the end, and he dug in, really got a gritty performance in the end by Keeler. So well deserved victory.
Yeah, wondering if they would have gone to the cards. The referee was the sole arbiter. Obviously, it reminds me of a fight back in the King's Hall many years ago between Andrew Murray and James Gorman for the Irish light welterweight title. And there was a clash of heads in the second round, I think it was. And they were scrambling at ringside to try and find out the rule, which I think they made up on the spot, of what was to happen if there was an accidental clash. And they said if it happened before round 3, it's ruled like a no decision or a no contest. But I think the BUI might have just made that up on the spot. Anyway, Rob, we're not casting any more aspersions. Tell me about Frampton Donaire. Dominating performance. Was Donaire past it? Quite a few points of view have been thrown around so far. Where do you stand?
Yeah, good win for Kell. Looked really good last night. Kept offsetting Donaire with his jab, landed on the inside. And I thought Donaire, I think ever since Rigondeaux, he's looked a little bit either gun shy or like he can't get off. But that's the way he looked to me last night. He was either gun shy or he just couldn't get off. Kept looking for the left hand. Couldn't find Kell. Kell was kind of doing a Rigondeaux-esque performance on him, basically. And I thought Frampton might even stop him at some stage, like busted him up. But Donaire, he came to try and win the fight, like he just couldn't do it. You know what I mean? So credit to him. But yeah, really good win for Kell Frampton.
Ozzy, we're talking, I've took my L about Cummings-Keeler, so we're not worried too much about that one. And I don't expect you to talk about Tete Narvaez in any great length either. Narvaez having his 32nd world title fight last night, which I believe is one away from a world record of all time. So they were saying at ringside anyway. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Anyway, tell me about Frampton Donaire, Ozzy.
I quite enjoyed the fight, to be honest. It's one that I think some people may have expected it to be a bit better than it was, but I quite enjoyed it. I thought Carl looked really good. For those saying that there wasn't much left of Frampton, I think the performance last night definitely countered the argument. And whilst it wasn't the best Donaire, I think Donaire was a live opponent. He definitely didn't come to lose. And I think the criticism was harsh sometimes on Donaire, but I thought Frampton quite basically negated the strengths of what Donaire had, and I thought he showed quite good recovery skills as well, because there was at times, I think it was round 10 that Frampton got caught clean a couple of times, and it was a strange one. He recovered relatively quickly, but it's like Donaire stopped throwing. It's like he saw he was hurt, but it's like he didn't move in quick enough, to like really just unload.
It was round 11, I believe, was it?
Was it round 11? Yeah. And he didn't just capitalise on that, but no, overall, I enjoyed the fight. And whilst it wasn't, it wasn't one for the history books. Me personally, I did enjoy it. I thought Frampton looked good. It'd be interesting to see who they're going to get for Windsor Park. I mean, they've said it's going to be August now, but I mean, will Valdez be fit? He broke his jaw. Will he recover from that? And all it takes is like, a bad cut or a bad injury in the Selby-Warrington fight, and that could potentially rule out one of those as well. So I thought it was a bold statement saying that they go in there in August, not in a sense of them worrying about selling anything, but when the two possible opponents aren't 100% confirmed in Valdez or the winner of Selby and Warrington.
Thank you, Ozzy. We shall move on. Just to remind everybody, in case you weren't aware, you're listening to the Nuthouse still. Don't forget to hit subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on, whether that's iTunes or YouTube or whatever, just to show the platform that you do enjoy listening to what we're sticking out here. Packed panel: Adam Smido-Smith, Dave, Donny, Andy, Gabe, who else? Ozzy, Rob are on. Full house. No Tommy, unfortunately. He's still worse for wear. No Kurt. We're trying to pull him back as much as we can back onto the pod. A few people asking about the intro, saying why don't we play the intro very quickly, because quite a few people have mentioned this. The reason I don't play the intro is because it contains music from the Cannibal Holocaust theme, and YouTube always pick us up on that and say that we're violating some kind of copyright laws. So that's the reason why I'm not playing the intro. Just wanted to put that one out there. Right, just before we move on to Liverpool, Dave, you've been spitting a lot of venom in the chat. You seem to be in a bit of a bad mood tonight. What's wrong? Is there anything you want to tell us? Anything you want to get off your chest?
No, nothing. Just like I said, the boxing this weekend was shit. There were no fights scheduled that really meant anything. And considering the results, they mean even less.
Dave's not happy. I don't know about you, Smido. What about Liverpool? What wasn't there to like in this Amir Khan fight? A quick knockout over a world-class opponent, as Eddie said. I mean, it was all great stuff, really.
Well, I tweeted just before the first bell, if Kell Brook's opponent and performance thereof was anything to go by, Phil GRECO was going to be crap. And that's how it turned out. I mean, I'm just sick of hearing, he's had a 10-week training camp. He looks really up for it. He's mixed it with some really top-level guys. Fuck off. It was shit. It was crap. And then, I mean, what have we learnt there about Amir Khan? I mean, the one we feel about really is, in this, Amir Khan has been out of the ring for the best part of 2 years, and then he goes and wins a fight in 40 seconds. That's no good for him. That is no good for him, and we certainly won't be seeing the Kell Brook fight anytime soon, given that Khan and Brook both need to get some more, some more ring practice or ring miles under the belt before moving on to world level. I just, they was trying to claim that Phil GRECO was world level last night. Now, come on, we've been through this many, many times. You could have fought for a world title or someone who has gone on to win a world title. That does not make you world class. The same argument we've put forward with Paul Smith and the likes, from yesteryear. It does not make you world class. I could fight Tony Bellew tomorrow, as Tommy Allen admitted to last night. He would probably get battered, but it don't make us world class. So, but that's a whole other argument. I thought the show as a whole was pretty crap. I mean, Coyle versus Dodd, decent little scrap. Not the most expensive to put on, not the most difficult to put on in terms of negotiations. Both had a couple of losses, both know their level. Good Commonwealth title fight. Yeah, fair enough. But to claim that that's chief support on a proper Saturday night bill, I don't think it's quite up to that standard. I think the likes of Dodd and Coyle should be first fight on, then on to a British title fight maybe, then on to either a big name or a world title fight. That's what we should be getting on Saturday nights, but we're not. The standard of the shows as a whole is crap. Eggington in a 6-rounder against someone who wasn't up for it and looked about 4 foot tall. I think that was first on. Then we went over to some women's boxing. I don't know whether Fowler was on there or not. I don't really care. I just turned over. We are being served absolute shite on these Saturday night fight cards. And we've got Michael Buffer over to do Amir Khan. I mean, he's probably done about half an hour's work this week and took home more than my yearly wage. We're meant to be getting the money from the pay-per-view AJ train and reinvesting it into these Saturday night shows. We're not doing that, and what we're getting instead is removing Saturday night shows, and then we're going to either a Friday or a Thursday night or a Sunday night with next gen, and we've got Hosea Burton, who was on it last time. I think Stuart Hall's been on a next gen card. Come on, Come on, mate. It's getting worse and worse and worse on Sky. And back to Khan. Yeah, look, he looked sound. From what we could gather from 40 seconds, it looked like the speed was there. Can't say much about the power because he just landed, flush shots against a bloke that was absolutely bamboozled in the headlights. And I can't see a Brook fight happening anytime soon because they will just Khan will insist, as he did last night, I'm a 147 fighter. I'm a 147 fighter. Can someone tell me seriously when the last time he made 147? Because it wasn't last Friday and it wasn't 2 years ago against Canelo. So, standing there saying I'm a 147 fighter just to get his excuse in and reason to not fight Brook. I'm not. We just, we can't have it. And then Brook saying he would make 147, and then the next breath, oh well, last time I made it, I was weight drained. That's why Errol Spence battered me. Errol Spence fucking battered Kell Brook, as a lot of us predicted, and then Brook won the other week against Rabchenko, and now they're looking at bringing Spence, possibly the best fighter at 147, possibly. Obviously, yet to prove it in a hot division. Oh well, I'll fight him at 154. Fuck off. Errol Spence never in his life has said about coming up to 154. I just think Brook's in real problems in that division because everyone at 154 is pretty damn good, willing to fight other people or other champions. But the problem is, from a matchroom perspective, is most of them are unheralded. But they are damn good. So Brook's got real problems in there. And I think Khan's going to find plenty of options in America. They're already mentioning Spence. He's obviously got Garcia, who he wants to apparently get revenge on. I think there's a lot of options for Khan, and he won't be worried about travelling to America, possibly getting on like a Jacobs undercard for Edward. I can't see the fight happening anytime soon. And the card overall was absolutely shit.
Smoother, GRECO, him being in the opposite corner. Was that like that guy who used to run on to the football matches, like dressed as a player and like get his photo taken with them and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. But Stevie was well up for it, and he's mixed it at the highest level, and he's had a 10-week training camp. I mean, if the fact that someone who is headlining a Saturday night card, if one of his three main selling points is that he's had a 10-week training camp, for fuck's sake. And people wonder why I've basically switched off to the sport. I mean, one of the lads texted me last night, who normally I speak to about football and racing and that. He texted me, "Is this a joke?" That was immediately after the Khan fight. Is this a joke? Like, we've got casuals who apparently pay the bills and can make it as afford to bring over fighters for pay-per-views. They think, oh, Amir Khan, I've heard of him. And I watched Joshua last week and I enjoyed that, or whenever it was 2 weeks ago. I just switch on. Khan's on. It's a joke. It is a laughing stock. Laughing stock, mate.
Donny, just while we're talking about Khan, there's a message coming through for you. Are you sure you want to pick this up, Donny? Go ahead, Don. Did you actually see anything of this blowout?
Well, the blowout in the ring was not the only blowout that happened in my household. Yeah, I'm thinking of that South Park GIF, with Randy. No, but
back to the boxing, Donny.
All right, yeah. No, I mean, I was thrilled, and I mean, you could say what you want. Of course, Eddie Hearn calling him world class obviously is a bit of a stretch, but Sean Porter is a hard puncher, and he went the distance with Sean Porter. And Khan put him out of there in 40 seconds. So, I mean, obviously, I think didn't Amir have a minor surgery on his hand?
Yeah, overuse, I think.
But yeah, I think that maybe that is allowing him to punch a little bit harder because, I mean, like I said, Porter was able to land on him, land plenty of flush shots, didn't put him out of there. Maybe Khan has a really good camp, and maybe that hand surgery helped. I have to be very excited. Obviously, we can't take very much from it, from the performance. I mean, it was a first round KO, so we didn't get to see too much of Khan and see where other aspects of his game are at because the fight was over too fast to evaluate those things. But I'm very excited that he's back in the ring, and I think that we're going to see something interesting next. I hope we do. Anyways, I mean, I don't know if it'll be the Brook fight. That would be great if it was. And with respect to him saying he's a 147 fighter, I don't have a problem with that because honestly, he is. Like Brook is not by a lot, but he's a larger man. And I mean, Khan would be at a disadvantage if he went up to fight him at 154. I mean, at the very minimum, maybe just saying I'm a 147 fighter is a negotiating tactic to make sure that the fight at least happens at a catch weight of 150. But he is a 147 fighter, and that's I think where he's at right now. And in terms of his career, I think that is the best weight for him. Obviously, his best weight historically was, of course, at 140, but 147 is where he belongs, and I think that's where he has the best chance to win all of his fights. If he's fighting north of there, we already know the results. I mean, his chance isn't the best in the first place, and obviously the bigger men that he gets in there with, the more dangerous is, that flaw that he has is going to be able to be exploited. So it's in his interest to fight at the lowest weight that he can comfortably make, and I think that is 147. There are a lot of great opportunities out there for him. I'd love to see the Garcia rematch. I think that's a fight he really should have won the first time, and he just got sloppy in there. Even when he was able to recover, he recovered in a way that was stupid. Like he went straight to war with him, even after he had gotten his bearings back, trying to finish the fight, and that's really what got him knocked out. It wasn't even that initially, getting shaken up. I think that was a fight that he was absolutely dominating for those, about 4 rounds. And I mean, Garcia was completely lost in that fight, and then just that one punch changed everything. But I think that's a winnable fight for him, and I think that would be the most credible win, possibly of his entire career. And it's a fight that he can win if he fights smart. I think that writing that loss on his record would be an amazing fight. I hope that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. A little bit of enthusiasm from Donnie there, Gabe. I want to get us out of this pit of despair as quickly as we can. Are you riding the Khan return hype train at all?
Never. I'll never join that train. I'll always rail against him. I'll always rail against Donnie on that one. That's revisionist history. He wasn't dominating the fight with Garcia. Garcia was in the fight as well. If you listen to the HBO commentary, of course you'd think that he was winning the fight, clearly. But it wasn't domination. He was doing well, and he was boxing well. If he would have played 12 rounds, he sure would have won. But Donnie's revisionist history has taken over the pod, and single-handedly his enthusiasm for Khan is overwhelming his sensibilities at this point. To be fair, what did you expect last night? It's the GRECO. I mean, the first thing that I thought when he was fighting this guy was, why? What good did that do at all? None at all. The fight was a tune-up to help him get ready, to make him feel good about himself so he can go into another fight that'll be a little bit higher caliber. I think in his third fight is whenever he's going to face somebody good. I don't think he's going to get a chance to go right in on somebody top name. If he fights Danny Garcia again, same result's going to happen again. So sorry to kill Donnie's enthusiasm about that. But fair play to him. I will say this. I've always said that he's overrated. I've always believed it wholeheartedly. But there's not a guy out there in the sport of boxing that, whatever you want to say, you want to call him stupid, fine. You want to call him a hero, that also is somewhat fair because the guy takes on opponents that he really probably could get away with not taking on. There was no reason to take that Canelo Alvarez fight, none at all, and he took it because he felt like he could do it, and he did well. I think we all knew what was going to happen whenever Canelo connected, and of course it did. But the point is, although I'm always on the anti-Khan train, the guy has cojones and he takes fights. I mean, I think he's good about it. He's one of the people that, although I don't care for what he does in the ring, I think he's good in that respect, that he takes on people that he wants big fights and those kind of things. But last night was nothing. It was obviously just to get his head back in the ring and get him started up. I think his handlers push him into those kind of fights to make him feel good about what's going on. So then he'll get a big payday so they can take their cut of it and leave the kid ruined and broke in a few years.
Gabe, Khan's never going to go broke. He's made enormous amounts of money in his career.
I don't know what his life is like outside of the ring. I don't pretend to know, and that's fine. I mean, I don't care about his money. That's none of my concern. But I just always wonder back whenever I see him taking fights like the one he took last night, you know, and then the foolishness that someone had to put him in the Canelo fight and those kind of things. If people are really looking out for his best interest, or if they're really out there to take what they're after instead of, you know, looking out for their guy.
Thanks, Gabe. Packed weekend it was at 9:20. I'm going to come to Hater Dave on Khan very shortly. I'm going to sneak a few results in here and there in between comments, though, if you don't mind. Otherwise, we're going to be here all night. Over in Germany, a fight we did talk about last weekend. Two unbeaten heavyweights. Tom Schwartz got a disqualification win over Senad Gashi for the German title. Agith Kabiel, you might remember him beating Derek Chisora, knocked out Mian Rovkanin in the third round of his European heavyweight title defence. I know Dave is desperate to talk about that, but Dave, tell me about Khan. Not so much the fight last night, but is he going to fight Kell Brook, or is this just a carrot that Eddie's going to keep dangling because he has to deliver pay-per-view dates?
Honestly, I don't give a shit if he fights Kell Brook. I've never really cared too much about that fight because they've never really been that close to making it, as far as I can see. They've never really been. It's never been a particularly relevant fight. When Kell was actually good at 147, Khan was not. Khan was basically a victim at the time. Khan was trying to rebuild his career, and he has really been trying to rebuild his career for the last several years, it seems to me. But Kell Brook now is at 154. I don't know if he can make 147 again. He says he can, but then that kind of takes away his excuse about why he lost the Spence fight and how he struggled so badly to make 147. You can't really believe anything these guys say. So the reality is, I don't even care until they're in the ring together, and we'll see what happens. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather actually see Khan against some other 147 names, see if he still got it, because he was a good fighter, very entertaining to watch too at 140. I thought he was in back-to-back fights of the year against Lamont Peterson and Marcos Maidana. Brook, I think he has less room to maneuver because he struggled. I don't think he's going down to 147 for anything except for a Khan fight. And if he doesn't get that fight, he's stuck at 154, where he's going to get his ass whooped by anybody in probably the top 10. Maybe just the top 5 will stop him. But yeah, I don't think Brook's prospects are very good, except if he does get the Khan fight, because I think he probably will win that fight. But who knows if he'll get it? Khan can probably beat Danny Garcia, but it's hard to say. He's always just one punch away from Bambi on ice. I'm not really saying anything new here. We'll just have to see what happens. And if it's an interesting fight, then I'll watch it. But none of what Khan has done in quite a while has been interesting to me.
Dave, since July 2012, when he got knocked out by Danny Garcia, off the top of your head, how many fights has Amir Khan competed in?
Well, top of my head. I'm not looking this up. I'm going to say...
Yeah, go on.
7.
Well, that's a good guess. So in nearly 6 years, we're only 2 months short of 6 years, he's only fought 7 times. Not good enough.
No, especially considering some of the opposition.
Yeah.
Like last night's, in fact, was probably the worst.
I tell you what, I'm glad I stopped drinking last on Friday night, by the way, because if I was hungover to fuck, you guys would have me on suicide watch by now. You're moaning like fuck. It's usually me does all the moaning.
I'm going to invite Alex Morris on later to cheer us up a bit. Good old Dave.
Between Dave and now we got Alex coming on. I mean, Christ, I'm going to put myself at the end of a rope over here. I need some boxing Prozac to keep me from ending it all.
Donnie's about to commit suicide. Smido's about to cancel Box Nation. It's all going on live tonight. I was bigging up Lamont Roach last weekend. He was fighting on Thursday evening in Puerto Rico. I'll give him the touch of death. He fought to a split draw, against Orlando Cruz over in Puerto Rico. So maybe Roach ain't as good as I thought he was. Rob, tell me about Khan. Did you even see any of this? I haven't seen a single stitch of the card.
Yeah, I saw it. Well, I didn't see the card. I saw the main event. So I was supposed to be at Frampton with the boys, but stuff changed here anyway. I had to go. I was out last night watching it. So I thought beforehand, you know, when you're kind of looking at the fight and you're analysing it in your head and you're thinking, well, this guy has a chance if he fights this way, and this guy. I was thinking if I was the GRECO, like, you gotta move the head and try to get in close, like, and hope for the left hook, because Khan's always been clipped by left hooks. Like, he's always got a right hand down, like, hasn't he? And his chin in the air. So if you're the GRECO, that's what you have to try and do. And I was thinking, if you're Khan, you just have to shoot down the middle, like. So you just shot down the middle in the first.
All that wasted brain energy from you, Rob, thinking of the GRECO's strategy.
And then the fucking fight's over in 40 seconds. I was like, holy shit, he didn't. Like, it was a very poor performance from his point of view, but he's got caught cold. Like, hasn't he? First time I thought maybe it was when you were watching it in real time, I thought maybe it's a quick stoppage. Like, but he was out of it. He didn't complain. Like, he got blitzed. We don't learn anything from it, really, do we? You just have to see Amir Khan active now. Like, I'm not mad at the Broner fight. I don't care what anyone says. Amir Khan versus Broner is worth it, I think. So shut all that soft ass shit up. You know what I mean? I really enjoyed it. Imagine the trash talk between Broner and Khan, like what Broner be saying about the missus and all that. Like, you know what I mean? No, I don't think I don't know what people think on this, and I think I mentioned it previously on the pod. Like, Khan to me always gives the impression that he doesn't want the Brook fight in interviews. I don't know what the thing has been behind the scenes, whether there's been offers made or whatever. I hear there has, like, and I'm sure he would fight anybody, but he never definitively says in any interview that I want Brook next. Brook is the fight I want next. Never. Last night is 147-pound fighter, and I want to win a title at 147. You can forget about that one, pal, right? You're not going to win a title at 147, 147. No chance. You know that as well as anyone else. Like, so there's no reason not to make the Brook fight next if that's the fight you want. Like, but they're talking about, Eddie's been talking about Crawford. Will you fuck off? You're not going to give Amir Khan to Crawford. Like, give me a break. Give me a break. Will you give him to Crawford or Thurman either, for that matter? Broner is the safe bet. He's the big money draw. That'll be the fight I think they're going to look to make next.
Rob Barnett's been in touch on Twitter. He says people mock Khan, but the simple fact is his resume is far superior to Brooks, and that is a fact. Matchroom fangirls need to accept that. I would agree with that. And I agree with what you say as well, Rob. If Khan does sometimes give the impression to the casual observer that he maybe doesn't want it.
Yeah, he just look. What's to stop him saying he went to confront him last night or whatever in a pre-staged whatever shenanigan. The whole world knew that Brook was going to be at the fight and that he was going to get in the ring. Man. Yo. But he gets in the ring, confronts him or whatever, and he still kind of ducks. He's like, "Oh, I signed to your promoter. I'm chasing you." Well, if you're chasing him, then say that you want that fight next. Like, you know what I mean? What's all this 147 title fantasy that's going on here? This hasn't worked out previously. And like, what? Errol Spence, mention Errol Spence's name. Give me a break. Like, that'd be a fucking a trashing. Like, I don't think nobody gives Amir Khan a chance versus Errol Spence. So I really, really believe the Broner fight is going to be the next one that they talk about making. But then it depends with Broner. Broner's not going to come to the UK, is he? Like, he probably can't come to the UK even. So
that's a good point.
You know what I mean?
He would get trolled to death, man. I'm telling you.
Oh man, stop! It'd be unreal.
He's an annoying wee ball bag. Can you imagine him in England or Scotland? Even Scotland, man. I came Aberdeen. I would want to find out where he's staying. I would go and set off a fire alarms or chap his door. Oh, but did everything annoy him? Just whatever I could do to upset him.
Yeah. I don't think they'd let the scumbag in, and if they did, somebody better watch his ass.
Man, shut that soft shit up.
I don't know. I think he'd get to a point, Rob, where he would come over because he's running out of options now, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a big money fight for Broner. It's probably the best one out there for him. That's a fight he'd be thinking he could win, like, and win against a big name and get a kind of the AB hype train rolling again in the States. Like, that's what he wants. I don't know if he's going to get it, but if that fight was offered to him, and I think Amir, they talk about Eddie fucking such a shithead as well. He said last night, after the fight that that fight now since Khan's performance against Low GRECO, him versus Brook now does 90,000 at Wembley.
He's obsessed with that 90,000 at Wembley shit, isn't he?
Asshole, like. Anyway, but yeah, I can't remember where I was going there, dude. But
that's okay. We've led you off the garden path, Bob. That's okay. We'll put it back on board.
Versus Khan, I think I don't know what I don't think of that one. I think that'll be really, really, really entertaining. Like, because we're not going to get the Brook fight next. Let's be honest. Like.
No, I agree with that. We were talking about the European heavyweight title earlier. The lesser EU heavyweight title was on the line in Sweden, where Otto Wallin beat Adrian Granat. We were talking about that one last week. We expected a knockout maybe, but Wallin got the business done on points, unanimous decision. Ozzy, I know you weren't too interested in that one. Tell me about Khan and Brook. Did you see after the fight, were they having a bit of beef back and forward? Was it good banter or was it shit patter?
It was all staged, wasn't it? And what amuses me is that Eddie Hearn allowed Kell Brook to storm the ring, if you were to say, but wouldn't allow Deontay Wilder to do it against Anthony Joshua. In my opinion, Brook needs Khan. Otherwise, there's no other options. There's not a chance they want to fight at 154 because he gets iced off everybody. He gets ruined. Whereas Khan has got options. He can go back to America and get a decent payday there. He can probably get a decent fight here. Now, for me, Khan should be looking to fight the winner of Pacquiao-Matisse. As much as it's for the regular title, if Khan can get in with Pacquiao, it generates cash for him. And that's the only reason Khan's boxing now. It's just to top up his basically top up his money. And if I was him, and Hearn wants this, Hearn wants the fight because it ticks a box for one of his pay-per-views as well. I'd be trying to get Brook as close to 147 as possible. Go and get the advantage because, like I said, Kell Brook needs this. I mean, he flew out to America to watch the 154 fights. God knows why. And then he's out ringside again. It's because they've no other options. What can they possibly go for? The only other thing they'll go for is Liam Smith, Saddam Ali winner. That's it. But they're not ranked by the WBO at that. Is it a fight I want to see? It definitely doesn't do 90,000 at Wembley. That's for sure. No chance. A few years ago, I think it would have sold itself. But now, I think people are sick of hearing it. I really do. And to say it does 90,000 is a joke. And I've seen, picked up it earlier in the week, Eddie Hearn was saying about GRECO, saying, yeah, he's not elite, but he's world class. Why? Why have none of these people interviewing him, questioned him on it, collared him on it?
Good point.
Why?
Good point.
Why not? It's like me saying, oh, yeah, I'm world class, and then people just bypassing it. Why is he world class? Just because he's boxed a couple of people. Does that mean all these journeymen that have boxed, like last-minute people? So like Kevin McCauley, who boxed Jack Catterall a couple of weeks ago. Is he British level, Kevin McCauley? Because he boxed a lad at British level. Is he fuck? It's like GRECO. Yeah, he's world class. Bullshit. And if that's world class, then fuck me.
He's going to be
the sport of boxing is struggling.
He's going to be the world class fighter that never fights for a world title again.
Exactly. That's the thing as well. He's not even contested for a world title. They can try and shoehorn it in with Smigger Smig because he's boxed for a world title. But GRECO has been nowhere near one. He won't even. I know he can't box one, but for me, he won't win a European title. I think he's below European level, GRECO. He's garbage. I mean, for all the talking he put up, it was an absolutely shambolic performance. And it reminded me of when Khan bullied Dimitri Salita and what they did to get rid of him in about a minute and a half or something like that. I know Adam Smith said that, Sky Adam Smith, and it pissed me off that I shared the same thought as him. But no, will the Brook Khan fight happen? I don't think it will. They'll talk it up again. Another option will crop up and it'll go away and then it'll come up again. I think the Brook demands, they will want too much sided to them. And like I said, I think there's options with Khan. Like I said, the Broner fight, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think Khan would win. It's a decent enough fight. I would watch that. And like I said, they're happy to go to America, which is a potential stumbling block. Whereas Brook, they're kind of stuck with him. I genuinely don't know where they're going to go. What did they win this WBC? Was it a silver belt or something like that?
Well, let me tell you, Kell Brook said last night that he does have options because if he doesn't fight Khan, then he can fight one of the Charo brothers.
Well, he'll get
fucked up.
He will get fucked up, yeah.
He'll fight one of the Charo brothers. So not the Charlos, but yeah. Anyway,
why was he booed? Why was he booed last night? I mean, I've seen zero of the Sky Card. I've seen the knockout on Twitter and that Khan GRECO. Why was Brook getting booed?
I'm not too sure, but he looked uncomfortable with it. He didn't really know what to do, bro.
No, just He's just getting booed by all the Corn fanboys that have made their way down from Bolton.
Do you know, it surprised me it sold out last night. I'm really shocked. I didn't think Khan would be a pull like that. I think fair play to him there, because the atmosphere actually sounded pretty decent.
They were struggling with that, mate. I know for a fact they were struggling with those tickets, so we're giving them away at one point.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, they did they claimed they did 9,000. And I know they did something like Bush Tucker trials like 3 days before the fight, and they were handing out tickets then. But still, the atmosphere did sound pretty decent. And for the card itself, it was utterly shambolic. It was just an embarrassment. And as long as people keep buying tickets for it, he will get away with it. Coyle, Dodd, more than happy with that. Great fight, produced the goods. Fair play to Tommy Coyle. He's never in a bad fight, and I thought he looked really good. Aside from that, it was just overmatched Olympians or prospects against just no-opers. Absolute no-opers. They were bumming off Conor Benn. He's back. He looks great. He boxed a guy who was like 3 weight divisions above and has been knocked out in his past like 3 or 4 fights. Garbage. Can't wait till he gets iced. I feel for Scott Fitzgerald. We had him on the podcast. He was promised his first title fight on it. Nothing. They put him in with some absolute tin pot Hungarian or something like that. Sam Eggington stepping up to 154, putting him in with some shite as well. It's boring, it's pointless, and these fighters do not gain anything from it at all. Absolutely nothing. And Hearn people should question Hearn on this card completely, because he'll happily pick up things on Frank Warren's cards and people happily mention it. But when it's Eddie Hearn, he gets away with saying things like Phil LaGreco's world class. It is a piss take. And honestly, he's like he's wearing a mask and he just pinches the money and does a runner. It's an absolute joke.
You want to add something, Smith?
No, it was shit.
Okay. Ben's on the call. Just before we bring him in, Republic of Poland international title news. I know everybody's desperate to hear about this. Thomas Adamek knocked out Joey Abel in the 7th round. And Yuri Kalenga retired, quit, whatever you want to call it, in the 6th round, surprisingly, against Matthias Masternik. The cards were quite close at that point. I don't know what happened. I saw Ryan Scalia tweeting about it. If he ever wanted to come back on with us, he could. Keeps refusing the invitations, but we'll maybe get him back on one day to talk about these type of cards, because I know he does follow them quite closely. Before we go on to Davis, Broner, Charlo, it's 20-10. Still loads to get through. Ben, tell me about Khan and LaGreco. I know you've jumped on for that sole purpose.
Yeah, I have indeed. Okay, so yeah, like everyone said, the card was a shambles, really. It wasn't that great. I missed the first few fights. By the time I got there, I think Bilal Rahman had just fought nobody. He was meant to fight Ryan Mulcahy. Obviously, that would have been a nice little scrap, I think, but obviously Ryan got injured. And like everyone said, the rest of the card was just horrendous. I think Anthony Fowler ended up fighting Ryan Toms, who Sam Eggington was meant to fight. Eggington fought a nobody. There was nothing of note at all. Scott Fitzgerald, I enjoyed watching Scott. Again, he wasn't fighting anybody like Ozzy just mentioned. I think he was meant to be fighting for a title. But I enjoyed watching Scott. Tasha Jonas's fight was probably more exciting than the rest of the fights that preceded it. And then Sean Dodd and Tommy Cole was obviously the best fight of the night. Amir, I think everyone was just a bit shocked that he did it in 40 seconds. I don't think anyone was shocked that he won. But LaGreco was just horrendous. And I even heard rumours on the press row yesterday that I think he was sparring with Jesse Vargas, and Jesse Vargas walked out after 3 rounds because he was that bad. Again, they're just rumours. So I'm not sure I'm not sure how true they are, because I've been told by other people that that people had sparred with him, that he could take a shot, and he was quite rugged in sparring. So I'm not sure which of those is true, but I'm probably leaning towards believing the Jesse Vargas story, given what we saw last night.
I'm going to believe that, even if it's not true.
Yeah, it was a very poor performance, obviously, from the GRECO. A few things about the fight week. Obviously, I mentioned this to you guys in the chat, that Amir's team didn't get called out when Phil was getting weighed in, which I'd never seen happen before, and I don't think any of you guys had. I asked Eddie about it after the post-fight presser yesterday, and he said they weren't there on time. My understanding is that that's not true, but I haven't sort of followed it up further. I'm not sure why that happened. Obviously, it's irrelevant now. Other things were about Kell jumping in the ring. In January, I asked Eddie if Kell was going to jump in the ring. He said yes. I said, is it like WWE style? Do you not think that's wrong? And he said, no, I think it's good. Then I asked him on Tuesday at the presser, is Kell going to jump in? He said, no, we never said that. And then obviously last night, I was sat right behind Kell Brook, in fact, all night. I was talking to Kell, and Kell said he's got to play the good guy, try and get the fight. And he wasn't sure whether he was going to jump in. But
so he's lied to your face, mate. He's lied to your face again.
Eddie's lied to my face, and someone mentioned something about Eddie there, and I was thinking, Eddie, just no. Even if you confront him, like I tried to confront him sometimes, but I'm not IFL, I'm not Fight Hype, I'm not behind the gloves. I get left, to the last few people. So when I get my few minutes with Eddie, I try and get questions in when I can. Obviously, last night I was trying to focus on sort of things to do with Khan, and I didn't have a chance to sort of critique the card sort of thing. But when you ask Eddie questions like that, he'll either lie to your face, like Andy says, or he'll try and switch it on you in a different way. I very rarely get a chance to sort of grill him. And I think a few people have said that Rob Tebbett used to do that for Behind the Gloves, but obviously he's left there now. He used to get a bit more time than I usually get. But people certainly do need to do that. Not enough people do it. Everybody's just sort of asking the same questions over and over again. But yeah, I don't think things are going to change. Going forward for Khan, I think Broner's next. He drew last night. I know it wasn't a win, but I think that's the direction they're probably that's the fight they're going to try and make first, I think.
Did you see any of Frampton at all, Ben? I know probably not with you travelling and stuff.
No, I didn't get back to, because I went to the hotel afterwards, and I spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours with Joe Goose and interviewing him, and then I didn't get home till nearly 5 o'clock in the morning. So I've not seen anything today. I just saw Khan.
Vital question: how much denim was Joe wearing while you were interviewing him?
He wasn't wearing any denim. He didn't have his denim jacket on when I interviewed him. He had some jeans on, but he didn't have his denim jacket on, and he was very annoyed that he couldn't wear a denim jacket into the ring last night. I know that.
Look, Joe.
I think the Robert at the board actually said he couldn't wear it. So that's how far it got.
Denim jacket stipulations. Stay on for as long as you want, Ben. We're going to be moving on to the American. Did you see any of the American stuff now?
No, I haven't seen anything except Khan. I haven't had a chance yet.
No, that's completely understandable. Stay on for as long as you wish. We've lost Smido, unfortunately. Let's get on to the American stuff then, and any previews for next week, and then the Bellew of the Weeks. Andy, you didn't see Broner, but you did see Charlo and Davis.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with Davis. I mean, whatever you think about this kid, I know he has trouble stringing a sentence together, but he can surely string punches together. I think natural ability-wise, he's right up there with some of the best in the world. This might sound like a stupid thing to say, but the kid's got some talent, I think.
Aye. With his head on it, he seems to be pretty good. Seems good in the pocket as well. Showed that last night. But at the same time, let's just be all the way 1,000 about this. The guy that he fought last night was 2 years out the ring, coming up a weight division. And
drained at that, yeah.
It drained at that as well, for what I understand as well. He'd been training something like to make weight. So, I know it's weak that it's a world title fight, and he's coming off a defeat as well in his last fight. So, I didn't want to sound like I'm hating on the guy because his opponent and such, but he did look good last night. But we've got to see that against like a live body. I mean, I'm not saying that the guy. Okay, I will say he was a dead man walking, so to speak. But there's a couple of good fights. I mean, okay, put him with the likes of Burchell. See how he gets on with that guy. That guy's a fucking monster at super featherweight. Put him in with him. See how he's going to cope with him. See how good he is. Okay, I think the division's slightly thinning out a little bit. Kind of old names today. I remember the Italian guys at Desert Buchero. I think he's way past his best now. I mean, he was never all that. He's a European level fighter anyway. Castellanos has been there or thereabouts. Christian Miyares, he's the wrong side of 35 now. Johnny Gonzalez, he's again late 30s. Tevin Farmer, I suppose that's the fight everybody wants to see. They've got some sort of beef going on with each other. Davis and Tevin Farmer. I think we call him. Leonard Ellaby was asked about it, so I think it might. I mean, okay, Farmer might have lost to Ogawa.
He's fighting Dib for the vacant because
is
Ogawa has been popped for PEDs, and so he's been stripped as far as I'm aware.
Well, there we go. It's a potential unification fight then. So hopefully Farmer wins, which I think he will against Billy Dib. I don't think Billy Dib's at this point. I think he's slightly washed.
Yeah, Farmer wins that.
Yeah. So I expect Farmer to win it, and hopefully these two guys can get it on. I think that would be a good fight at 130. I mean, these guys generally hate each other supposedly, so I'll get that fight on. But yeah, I mean, okay, it was good body shots. End of the day, it was it was really rapid way on the inside, and it probably did help the fact is that Quayle was actually a southpaw as well, so it was easy to kind of get the left hand in at the body and that as well. He really did kind of thud that, especially for that first knockdown anyway. Pretty brutal. Who was the other one on the card? Charlo, man, that was just evil. Honest to Christ, he caught. I think I agreed with what Showtime said actually, because Centeno landed a right uppercut and it kind of gave him a wee bit of confidence, and he said, right, okay, I'll plant my feet here. Bad idea. And then he just got clipped to it. I think it was a right hand just slightly behind the left ear, and then the left hook came in like a bitch and just dropped him.
They can dig them pair, can't they? Those Charlos.
I know what you're saying. Well, anybody who's listened to the podcast for long enough will probably heard me saying that I wasn't really interested in the Charlos until when they moved up in weight or changed their hair colour or whatever, because I just didn't know who was who. But they're starting to edge me closer to that hype train. They really are starting to kind of pull me toward them. Especially if Jamel fights and beats Hurd and knocks him out. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's the only fight that's going to happen at 154. The other brothers calling it Golovkin. I don't know if he's legit about that. Obviously, there's politics involved there. There's mandatory defences, legal problems going to be cropping up there. So I think Golovkin's in a bit of a mess at the minute. Nobody's own making, obviously, but he's just got mandatory defences. The Canelo situation is coming out his arsehole now. So I would like to see the winner in next week's fight between Jacobs and the Pole fight Jamal Charlo in the next fight, because obviously, as I said, Golovkin's going to be tied up for a wee bit, so I don't know, unless the WBC call it pretty quick. And then at 154 I want to see the other brother fighting Jarrett Hurd. I'm not interested in then like kind of Islam or Soros or Kell Brooks and Bazangarovs, people like that.
Islam looks good now.
He's okay, I think. Yeah, I think he's okay. I think I need to see a wee bit more of him, but I think he's at that point now, especially his point in his career, not his career, but his age. I think that might come into the fact, okay, he was a good amateur. I think he fought in the World Series of boxing, possibly. But I just think he might be at that age, he's either at his peak or he's actually just coming toward the end of it, actually. We've not really seen the best of him, especially on like the mainstream, shall we say. He's one of the fighters that only the hardcore kind of really follow or watch, but nah, it's going to be Hurd and Jermel, I think it is, at 154, and I'll take anybody at middleweight for Jermel.
Yeah, Dave, as much as I was impressed by Gervonta, I suppose Andy makes a good point. The theme of the night, I suppose, was fast, slick dudes going in against sort of Latino plodders, really. And, I mean, what can you do? Charlo knocking out Centeno Jr. Start us off with that one. Centeno Jr. had been beaten by Salaki. He'd obviously got the win over Aleem, so he was coming in on reasonable form. He had excuses for the loss against Salaki. I think he was struggling with the weight, but he never... there he was prancing about with his slick back hair. He never looked like someone who was going to dent Charlo whatsoever.
No, he offered absolutely nothing. But the main event did not feature a quick, slick black fighter. It featured a black plotter whose feet are stuck in cement, who throws about 10 punches around against a guy who can't really punch. But I thought the draw was fair in the main event. Probably Charlo's was the best showing of the night, considering the opponent. It was probably slightly better than Gervonta's opponent. But Gervonta looked good too. I mean, he looked, and I'm not saying that this win means anything, but I think he looked crisp with his shots. He looked a little. He had that more disciplined look about his boxing.
Control of distance is good as well, I think.
Yeah, even better than I think he looked in his breakout fight against what's his name, the champion that he upset to
Pedraza, was it?
Yeah, Jose Pedraza. Yeah, I think even that fight he looked a little wild. He loaded up a lot, telegraphed his shots, but then he who was that British guy he knocked out in about 3 rounds?
Liam Walsh.
Walsh.
Yeah, I can't keep track of all your Liams and Smiths and Walshes and Lees and all that. Whatever. Liam Walsh, when he did Liam Walsh, I thought he looked really good. He looked similar to that last night, much better than he did in his last shit performance. Maybe Kevin Cunningham is helping to discipline him. I don't know. He doesn't seem to be doing much for Broner because Broner looked the same as he always does.
I noticed actually on the Showtime feed last night that Kevin Cunningham's got a 6. Where's he based? Is it Florida or Washington?
I don't actually know. Davis and Broner both in his camp now together.
Aye, because what I was going to say is
that's going to go well.
I know, because what I was going to say is he's actually got a 6-bedroom house, Kevin Cunningham, and apparently they're staying there and they've got their own cook in there, so they're probably trying to get their shit together now. I think Broner knows this is kind of really his last chance to get his shit sorted, but
enough rooms for Broner's kids to stay as well. You see them all
inside. 60-bedroom.
Now he's only got a 6-bedroom house, Steve. Relax.
That's the ones he knows about as well.
Andy, are you thinking about that prediction of yours about Gervonta being dead by age 30? Now that
I think he's turned his life around now.
He's left Baltimore. I mean, he's still young and he still tweets bullshit and acts dumb, but I don't know. I think this move is good for him.
Anyone who tattoos their throat, Andy, you've got to call into question, so that their sanity, like.
Anybody who gets a tattoo, period, you got to call their sanity. I mean, fucking needles just give me the heave, like. But no, as I say, I agree with you, Steve. I think he's maybe changed his life around a wee bit here. Maybe the move will do him good. Broner, on the other hand, I'm not too sure, but I'm okay. I think the two of them are really good pals, so really they should really be able to bounce off each other and keep each other right, so to speak. But it's all down to like dedication at the end of the day. If they really want it, especially in Davis's case, not so much Broner. Broner's chance is come and went. We kind of keep going 3-4 times, thinking that he's going to be like this reincarnation of fucking Floyd Mayweather at some point. It's just not going to happen. His time has been and went. So Davis has got time on his side now. He's got this is it. He's got the knuckle down. Forget the nonsense. Stay away from Baltimore. That is your first priority. Stay away from Baltimore, and you'll be fine, and you should be doing okay. But I want to see an up in class in opposition now, actually, because okay, the Walsh fight was so. I forget who he fought in the title fight that he lost his title in the scales. He was awful in that fight.
Moses something. No, who was that guy? Oh, I can't remember.
I can't mind. And that last night's a guy coming off a 2-year layoff who was training simply to make weight. So let's just bear in mind here that he's got a new trainer. Okay, we'll give him that. You've got a fake title. So let's just see where he goes for here. But I want to see a definite increase in opposition, better opposition in future.
The opponent we were trying to think of was a guy called Francisco Fonseca. I've never heard of him, to be honest. I don't think I've actually seen that fight. I'm not going to go back and watch it. Rob, a couple of things for you on Broner. I'm going to give him a little bit of credit in that I thought Vargas was quite liberal with the head and also with a few of the low blows, and I didn't see Broner complaining, to his credit. I thought the referee wasn't the best, to be honest. I think he let both guys get away with a lot, but especially Vargas. I thought Vargas was really he was the first one to let the low blow go in the sequence that led to Broner being warned, and his head was flying in all night, and the referee was ignoring it. But the referee was then really pernickety in between rounds, like going into the corner and telling them about other things, like shouting at each other after the break and stuff. I didn't think he did a very good job, to be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't a pretty fight on the eye, but what Adrian Broner fight is, like, you know what I mean? I like this idea of the new trainer, because I always said it. I thought that he should get away from Stafford because he didn't listen to him or he didn't respect him. Like, but I don't know if this is more of a fitness move or a tactical move, like, because he's not doing anything different. Like, not letting his hands go still. He didn't look as tired last night, but he's not letting his hands go. Like, and I don't like. we mention his footwork all the time, like, but he needs to try and fight in a different way. Like if he's walking you down, like he doesn't move his head or anything. He doesn't try and close distance, shuffle across or anything. He just stand in front of you and try and walk to you, like. And if he can't pot shot you, he can't do anything with you, like. So I thought he took over in the second half of the fight. And a draw is a fair result, and I don't think we don't want to see a rematch, like, so let's just get him in with Khan or somebody exciting, like where you're going to get a good build up and all that. He's a good character. I mean, he's a deplorable human being, but he's got somewhat star appeal, just from the controversy alone, like, and it'd be about time that he get in some good fights to match that, like. Gervonta, though, I thought looked really good. Like I said, shot selection was great. Like there was just this technique and everything, and in some of the counters he was throwing.
Yeah, that's what I was meaning, Bob. Even though the level of opposition, you could tell that there's class there.
Yeah, and he's sharp, like, and I mean, look, the circumstances in which he missed weight last time. We spoke about it last week on the pod. Someone was trying to extort him, and there was a kidnapping and all kinds of carry on going on. And if he got out of Baltimore, that's good for him, like. But I don't know. I mean, the two boys are away living in this house, and they got a dietitian, they got a cook, and they know what they're eating every morning, and they're going training. But I think they need to work on refining Broner style, like that shoulder roll, stand in the pocket thing. Just it's not working, like, and he's getting exposed every fight he's involved in, like. So they need to do something if they want him to stick around.
Can't do anything else though, can he? Maybe.
I don't know, man. I think he'd be able to, like, if he got a bit of, I don't know, like, I think he could, if he was a bit more of a dog in him, like that, he pressed the fight a little bit more. I think you'd see him more exciting, Broner.
I think it goes back to his feet, like you say. The foundation of everything goes back to his feet, and it just ain't there.
It's always been like that, though. I mean, I've watched Broner at a time when the Burns fight was a real possibility, and I was studying tape of him. His feet were always flat, always plodding.
Yeah, but when he was smaller, like, he has huge long reach, like, doesn't he? So against the smaller guys, he was just able to stand there and pick him off or whatever, like. And then he's gone up, he always struggles, like, I don't know. He's not lived up to the hype of his career anyway. Like, his career could have panned out a lot better. He hasn't lived the life, and it might be too late for him now, like, you know what I mean?
Just to be clear, though, he didn't really use the shoulder roll last night, like, at all, actually. I mean, he had to
put the hands up, the elbows out type of thing.
Yeah, it was basically.
That's what I'm saying. So, but it's like, what's the method to that style? Like, he can't, like, he should, from I know they got Vargas late, like, or whatever. Vargas doesn't get, that's Vargas on not a full camp either, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, what are you doing to close the distance? Like, how are you going to win the fight? Like, gonna let your hands go. Like, a man screaming at him in the corner to let your hands go, but he has to be able to get in range too, like. So I don't know.
Donaire, Vargas trainer watch, another fight, another trainer. Mike McCallum, the legendary body snatcher, one of my favourite fighters, was in the corner. Does Vargas just need to pick a trainer and stick to one, maybe?
Actually, to tell you the truth, I mean, even though I thought that a draw was a fair decision, I thought it could have gone either way, to be honest with you. I just think that there was actually nothing wrong. I think that Vargas's body punching was probably the best I've ever seen it. I mean, he landed some vicious body shots on Broner repeatedly. Like, I mean, and he invested in it like every single round, and he never let up. But that was some of his best work. And I think that God, I mean, who else could have maybe had an effect on that, right? Could have been one of the best body punchers of all time himself, McCallum. So, I mean, I think that element that seems to have been accentuated in his game now is great. And I think the only thing is that he just needs to work on pacing himself. I think he could have clearly won that fight if he just hadn't thrown so many punches in that.
He was too pumped up early on, wasn't he, I think?
Yeah, I think he was having some success, and maybe he got drunk on his own success and he just emptied the kitchen sink. And, I mean, he threw like, what was it, like over 900 punches. And, I mean, this isn't like, these aren't straw weights, these are welterweights. I mean, he really, really emptied the entire arsenal early on. And I think that's why it helped Broner get back into the fight, because Broner likes a slow pace, because he doesn't, he is actually pretty accurate with his punches, but he's not like a high activity fighter. And so, I mean, I was like, if Vargas was able to keep up that kind of pace, he would have dominated Broner. But I mean, he's either got to work on his gas tank so he could just literally just train for endurance and just fight like that the whole time, or he needs to work on pacing himself and fight in a more traditional manner. But I mean, he had the right game plan, which is just to continually outwork Broner and outthrow him. but not to that degree, not to front load all of his work like that, because I think it really cost him in the end.
Donny, let me bring in to Dave. Dave, Donny mentioned the scoring there. I'm interested to hear your scoring, Dave, because Chris Blackman was on with us. He said awful scoring from the Broner Vargas fight. Looking forward to hearing our opinions. What do you think about the scoring? Chris hasn't actually specified what he thought was awful. Should Vargas have got it? I'm assuming that's what he's saying. Should Broner have got it? Was it awful scoring, Dave? I thought it was pretty close fight, to be honest. I didn't see too much wrong with the scoring.
I thought it was okay. Yeah, I thought it was all right. I had Vargas winning 7-5, 115, 113. But I am, of course, biased against Broner, so there's that. But I really did think he banked so many early rounds and then took a few late that it was pretty hard to make a case for Broner to win. Just mathematically speaking, I don't know what Julia Letterman saw maybe early on, Broner winning one or two of those closer rounds. But he barely threw a damn punch. And the power deficit was clearer as the fight went on. Early on in the fight, you have them sort of more about even. But later on, I think Vargas was hurt maybe in the 10th round, 9th round, one of those. The problem is Vargas can't punch. Like he was landing good shots, lots of them on Broner. If he had power, Broner would have been down at least once. But Broner's head shakes, I think, in this fight were legitimate because Vargas's power didn't seem to do a damn thing. Didn't mark up his face. All those good body shots Donnie was talking about, they didn't seem to suck the wind out of Broner. In fact, he got stronger as the fight went on, like he often does. He does tend to close well. But the 12th round was a piece of shit. I don't know who won it. I mean, I can't remember who I gave it to. I think I gave it to Broner. Like both guys are it's in a close fight, and you have them right on the edge here, and you wanted to see some fire to claim, to put your exclamation point on the fight and claim it, but neither one did. And
that's a great point, Dave. In the crucible of what was a really important fight for both guys' careers, nobody did anything.
They tried to sit on their lead that they thought they had.
And actually, the funny thing is that, I think as I was watching in the Showtime commentary, they said that of the two judges that had it a draw, one gave it to Broner, the other one gave it to Vargas. And if just one of them had switched either way, the fight would have. Sorry, guys. The fight would have tipped, and so it's like, yeah. I mean, really, they had to know it was close. I mean, it meant so much. Like, if a loss for Broner would have been devastating, and a loss for Vargas would have maybe not quite as devastating, but it really would have set him back. Like, you would think that if you had, this is a career sort of inflection point for both guys, that they would have came out and really went for it. That 12th round really was shit, and that really did surprise me.
I'm actually shocked though that they did call it a draw instead of giving it to Broner. I was sure he was going to get the decision because we've seen it so many times before.
I actually thought Vargas would get it on activity. Right, final word to you, Ozzy. Broner's meltdown at the end, his sort of contrived rant against Jim Gray, trying to grab the mic and all this. Was it just another vain attempt to mask his in-the-ring deficiencies that once again reared their head?
He's a pain in the arse, isn't he? And I think it was, to be honest. I didn't see all of the fight. I've caught bits and pieces of it, like watching it in and out. From what I saw on the other people's comments and things like that, it seemed a draw was a relatively fair result. I saw some people who scored it for Vargas by a couple of rounds. I didn't see anybody, funnily enough, score it for Broner, which was interesting. So it was either a draw or a couple of rounds to Vargas. Rob made a good point. It was one I was going to bring up, and that was Vargas on about what, 4 weeks, something like that. So
actually, they said 7 on TV. I don't know if that was right or wrong.
Oh, was it? Oh, right. I didn't realize it was that. I didn't realize it was that he had that much notice. I thought it was only 4. 7 weeks. What would he have had realistically? 2 more after that. A 9-week camp. I'm not really interested in seeing a rematch. I would rather see Broner Khan next, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't want to see the rematch. There's no point.
Yeah, I would rather see Broner Khan. I think it would be quite fun, to be honest. And I think Khan would make him look silly at times and quite foolish. But no,
yeah. Are you saying Khan make Broner look foolish?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's stylistically, that's probably one of the worst fights that Broner could possibly pick out in the division just because of Khan's activity rate. I mean, I'll let you go on, but I mean, to me, Khan would be like kryptonite to him.
Yeah, and I think it will be a good win for Khan as well. I think it'd be one that definitely like moving forward. I think if he then goes like beats a Broner and then moves on, like to a little level above that, that's a step in the right direction rather than putting Khan in, with like one of these no matchroom opponents. But going back to it with Broner, I don't really get his weight situation. What was it at? Yeah, yesterday at 144. Like, why was it not put at one? Was it not put at 147 because of like why wasn't it put at 147? I don't really understand that. I didn't see a point of this pointless.
Is it to show that he's like making an effort to sort of get down in weight? Not really.
But there was no belt on the line last night or anything, was there? Because it can't, because it's at like 140. Or was there like a fringe? Like one of these ranking belts or something. But I didn't see a point because you could have put some bogus title on the line at 147. So I didn't really see a point of the 144. I mean, I thought I saw Broner I thought he botched the weight at first, but it was only like a couple of ounces and he made it straight away. But no, I mean, I didn't really see a point in the 144. It does nothing for anybody. Like I said, it's a draw. Broner can probably go and get another fight, like I said, with Khan next. I don't really know what Vargas will do, to be honest. It's a bit of a situation where he's in one of them, and he was pulled in as an opponent. Where will he go next? Not sure. Broner is probably going to be made for Khan.
Yeah, I'm not sure where either of those guys will go. One person we are sure about next Saturday evening, Prince Patel. The march continues, 12-0-1. He's going for another title, the vacant WBO European Bantamweight title against Michiko Shubatidze. This is over in Hungary. So the Patel the Patel bandwagon lives on, I suppose you could say. Oh God, I don't know what to do with that. Anyway, Gabe, you haven't spoken yet on the Barclays Centre card, have you? Davis, Charlo, Broner. Who was the best fighter of the night? Who impressed you the most, Gabe?
I think Charlo is my personal favorite of all the fighters that were on the card. But I think Jesse Vargas increased his stock for me the most. I never have really cared much for the guy. When he used to apply a little bit more boxing skills in what he was doing, I just always found him a little bit boring. Because he could, earlier on in his career, he could outbox people, but it was really boring because I think he has a lack of power, I think. And I don't know, I've just never really been real high on the guy. So whenever a person like him, who I don't see as being really powerful or maybe a top tier fighter, goes in with a game plan like he had and works the body over and really fights with some tenacity like he did, I felt like he raised his stock for me more. I'll be more invested in watching the guy in the future on a personal level. But as far as who raised their stock the most in terms of what was at stake, what is at stake, what possibilities were opened up, I have to say maybe Charlo. And I say maybe because I think it could still be a case where people are going to overlook him. He's not going to get the big fights because nobody wants to fight somebody like that. But I mean, I think he's raising his name up to a point where, the fans out there that maybe don't watch every card that comes on, or maybe don't watch every weekend's worth of fights, are going to start clamoring for him to get the big fights, and then it's going to become unavoidable. Somebody's going to have to give him a fucking shot, and I think when that happens, he's going to get his opportunity. I think he's going to seize it. I really like both the Charlo brothers, so I think that's what I saw. I really thought the Vargas fight, I had it by a round to Vargas. Excuse me. I didn't really agree with a draw. I thought what I saw was pretty clear. But, a draw was okay. Julie Letterman should be kicked off of doing any fights. Horrible score on her card. Just horrible. I'm so sick of this nonsense that we get consistently with people like Julie Letterman, because she's done a whole bunch of high-profile fights, and her dad's, somebody that works with HBO. getting to continue to do fights like that whenever she had no business judging that fight. She has no business judging any fight as far as I'm concerned. It was complete horse shit, and her scorecard was completely off base. I think that judges need to open their fucking eyes and score body punching because it's a scoring blow. Like, I don't understand what's so fucking hard to understand about body punches are in the range that score. You know what I mean? Like, if you hit them in the hips, that's one thing. But whenever you're scoring body punches, like, so many judges overlook that. And I'm not saying if you score 2 body punches to a good solid headshot, it's going to take over that, because 2 is more than 1 kind of thing. But whenever you have somebody that's consistently working the body like Vargas was, I mean, I don't understand how you could see that and not score it, because I felt like that's what her card showed, was a lack of scoring body punches. I think Vargas had a good game plan for old Broner with his old stuff, the old antics that he had, because if last night, if he hadn't been with Cunningham, I don't think Cunningham would have had him, or I don't think his former trainer would have had him in as good a shape. And I think that Vargas would have taken him into some problem rounds in the late rounds, because his stamina always seemed to kind of fade in his fights, and he seemed to tire a little bit more. But last night I thought he actually looked decent as far as stamina. It was more the same old shit. I mean, he's had a professional career now. He's made it to the point where, some guys retire. He's made it to a point where he's had some high profile fights and some big tough fights, and done some good things in terms of his win-loss record type things. But I don't think that he is really going to change the way he fights. I don't think anybody's going to bring that out of him. It takes a special and a certain kind of fighter and a certain kind of trainer, and even then the relationship has to be just right before you see those changes go into effect. I mean, I could name off a bunch of them, but the first one that just popped into my head was Cotto. I mean, he trained with a lot of different guys there at the end, and there wasn't really that much change. I mean, he had something alter after the Shane Mosley fight, and after that, he pretty much fought the same way throughout. The only time he ever really changed was whenever Freddie Roach got a hold of him early, and he was facing, Delvin Rodriguez and the Australian guy.
Gill.
Yeah, Daniel Gill. And that was because it was easy for him to go back and go to being more of a body puncher like he was early in his career. You know what I mean? So I think at some point, it's just, there's not going to be any change. You can make a few tweaks. You can make a few alterations to a few things here and there. They're going to be minor adjustments. I just don't see anything changing. And so I thought it was a good fight, though. I mean, really, it was a good fight. There was a lot of action in it. And so I think for myself, it was a good night to watch. I mean, you got to see some knockouts. You got to see a good fight. Nothing of a ultra high level, in terms of that, because I think the opponents people had in the ring were kind of tailor made. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. Pretty decent evening, I suppose.
Yeah, while we're talking about Cotto against Gale, it wasn't so much Gale, but a corpse that resembled Gale that he was fighting, but we'll leave that for another evening. Right, let's get on to the previews and Bellew of the weeks so we can finish up. I'd like to get the podcast turned around as quick as we can. Over in Germany, we're not going to talk about this, just mention it. Arthur Abraham's going in against Patrick Nielsen. He's still going Abraham. Also on the undercard, Nicky Holsken, I believe, is the guy who fought Callum Smith. He's fighting against Gayard Ayatovic. He was a journeyman on the UK scene a while back. I can't believe he's still boxing, but he is. Andy, tell me about this one. We were talking about it off air, I believe, over in Pennsylvania next Saturday evening. This could turn out to be a really good fight. Just briefly mentioning the undercard fight, it's a top-ranked show, obviously. Shakur Stevenson stepping up against the 12-0 guy. Bryant Jennings, have a look at Bryant Jennings' opponent on YouTube. Joey Daveshko, 19-4-4. He's a tubby southpaw, man, but he's got quite a few decent moves. Also, Jesse Hart against Demon Nicholson. And the main event, Andy, I'm looking forward to this. 25-0 Jesse Magdaleno defending his WBO Super Bantamweight title against an opponent that some people could be sleeping on. 18-0 Isaac Dogbo. That's a good main event, there.
Oh, aye. Really good main event. I'm on that Dogbo hype train. Obviously, his last fight was against Cesar Juarez, man. It was just insane. The atmosphere actually probably rivaled what was like there last night in Belfast, was it, no, mate? It was just absolutely incredible. Dogbo, really kind of up and comer, really getting a lot of hype in that. Magdaleno as well. He's a competent boxer, really good. But of course, I'm on the Dogbo hype train, so I'm obviously going to go with him. I'm not too sure how it's going to play out, though. I really don't know. I think it's going to go to points. I'm not too sure. I maybe need to come back to me on that one actually kind of later on in the week. But I'll need to have a think about that a wee bit further because obviously my brain's still fried Friday night. So, but definitely Dogbo. I'll go 160, 112 points.
I'm thinking it might end up like a fight a few years ago where a South African stepped up at bantamweight called Silence Mabuza in against Rafael Marquez, and he gave him a good show, but Marquez just had too much. I'm wondering if that fight might turn out that way. But like you say, Dogbo's real talented.
It's a mandatory defence as well, I think, for Magdaleno, so should be good.
Should be a good one. Ozzy, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this little tournament thing that's going on. Evander Holyfield's running it over in, now this sounds like my type of place, the KFC Yum Centre in Kentucky, the welterweight tournament. Some decent fights at a certain level, Ozzy, this on the Friday night at welterweight. I'm assuming the winners go on to fight on another evening. That's the way they're working it. Felix Diaz is going in against Francisco Santana. Chris Van Heerden's in it against Timo Schwarzkopf. Frederick Lawson, we've seen him fighting before against, I can't remember who. I think he knocked somebody out in his last fight, actually. He's in against Bashambo Nasiawula. And Brad Solomon goes in against Paddy Gallagher from Belfast. And Kareem Mayfield's in it against unbeaten Sergey Lubkovic. Anyone you fancy? Diaz is a decent fighter. Ozzy Lawson has a bit of pedigree, so does Van Heerden. The tournament format overall, possibly, it could be at a lesser level, maybe a decent display.
Yeah, I quite like it, to be honest. I like the way that they're all on the same night as well. I mean, I don't know anything about, like the format, whether, like, for example, say Diaz wins and Van Heerden wins, they meet, or whether there'll be a draw. But I quite like it all happens on the same night. So we're not waiting, around, like for one event and then another and then another.
All so 10 rounders as well, Ozzy.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, I don't know about some of the opponents. I've never liked that. Bashambo Naziwula, if that's how you say his name. But they could make some really good fights, if the relative... It's Chinese, him. Bloody hell. They could make some real good contests. If they're relatively even, if they're evenly matched, then it could produce some absolute crackers. Diaz, did he lose to Terence Crawford last time out? I think, was it
recently? He has done, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if he's boxed since then or something like that.
Something tells me he might have done, actually. I'm going to check that
out. So yeah, I think.
No, he hasn't. Sorry, he hasn't.
Oh, he's not. No. I think he won a medal, didn't he, or something like that? So from the Dominican, he looks. I mean, he didn't really do a lot against. Did okay against Crawford, I think. I can't remember the fight, to be honest, but he isn't. He's got ability. Van Heerden, I mean, we've seen and heard about him, haven't we? He was obviously sparring the one and only Conor McGregor. So obviously he's. I wonder if he's called him in for sparring again for this big tournament. A top quality boxer like him. But no, I like these tournaments will work providing there's no injuries. This is all I say about these tournaments. It's like more people will call for them. I agree, yes, but as soon as you get an injury, the whole thing is thwarted. But like I said, I like that it's all on the same night. I'll try and catch it next week. I don't think any UK TV has picked it up, so it's going to be the hope of online YouTube and things like that to try and see any of these fights. It'd be interesting to see. It's a good opportunity for Paddy Gallagher. I mean, like I said, he fought for like Celtic titles or something like that over here. So it's a step up for him. But you never know, he might rise to the occasion and do well. But we'll wait and see next week.
We will do. I wonder if we'll be able to get to watch that. I'll try and get it by some means necessary. Maybe YouTube will pick it up or something. Donny, the big one next weekend, big in every sense of the word, Jarrell Miller against Johan de Hapas. I know that everyone's looking forward to the Katie Taylor journey. She's fighting Victoria Noelia Bustos, no less. And also there's a small matter of Danny Jacobs against Maciej Zaleski. Hope I'm saying that right. He's 26-0. He beat the aforementioned Hugo Centeno Jr. This is a decent fight for Jacobs. I'm not going to give him too much stick on this one, Donny, actually. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the best he can do, really. I mean, for now, anyways. Charlo obviously was fighting last week. And Golovkin was obviously supposed to be tied up with Canelo, obviously, and now that's just been basically delayed till September. And we want to see Jacobs in the big fights, but in terms of okay, if we can't get maybe the top 3 guys that we want, Saunders obviously is still has the hand problem, I guess, or is he injured?
Sorry, Donny, go ahead. I wasn't listening to you. I do apologise.
Does Billy Joe, does he have an injury?
Yeah, he's got a really bad hand injury that has ruled him out. He's fighting Murray in June now, though.
Yeah, basically, so you got this, 4 guys maybe that you'd like to see Jacobs fight, and they're all unavailable for various reasons. So, in terms of one of those sort of fights that you sort of take while you're waiting for the big ones, this guy's a legit opponent. And I'll be very happy with I'm very happy with the selection of the opponent, and it'll be a good win for him if he gets it. And I think he will. I think that you can make a very good case that Jacobs actually beat Golovkin, or at least came very, very close, and certainly probably more so even than Canelo. And I think he has the talent. He's obviously taken Golovkin's punches, so we know that he has the chin, and that maybe that loss back from early in his career is probably not something that's indicative of his ability to take a punch. What
about getting dropped by Sergio Mora?
Yeah, well, all right, shit happens, but that doesn't mean fighters go down a lot. But for instance, Broner got floored a couple times against Madonna, but he still has Broner really is a tough customer. You could say whatever you want about him, but he's got a very good chin, and even when he does go down, he has great recovery powers. So I think that Jacobs' skill set is it's elite, and I think that he's shown that with the performance he turned in against Golovkin, and I think that he should have more than enough to deal with Selecki, and I think it'll be entertaining to see where he's at, and hopefully he'll put on a good show. Obviously he sells well in New York, so hopefully we'll see an enthusiastic crowd and keep the fire burning in the middleweight division. Ultimately, there's the talent there is starting to really pool up. Obviously the Canelo Golovkin thing is terrible, with respect to what happened, but Billy Joe looks better than he's ever looked. Jacobs obviously was a lot better than people realized, as the Golovkin fight told us. Now you got Charlo coming into the division, and he's there, and he's making a lot of fans want to see him get into the mix, and so it's a good division, and I want to see all these fights happen, and hopefully, like I said, Jacobs can just show us what he's capable of once again, and hopefully puts on a good performance and keeps banging the drum repeatedly, so that we see these big fights and that they come together.
Right, yes. Rob, any comments from you? Selecki, a few decent wins on the record. Proxer, Centeno Jr., Jack Kulkai. He's going to give Jacobs something to think about, maybe?
Shut that soft ass shit up. And the best man. That's some soft ass shit. Shut that soft ass shit up. I'll let.
What do I think about that? No. I think the guy's pretty much covered it in next week's fights too.
No problem. Right, we'll move on to Bellew of the Weeks, and then we'll get out of here. Right, what I'm going to have to do on Bellew of the Week, so I've had to do this in the past, I'm going to call the casuals because it's late, 25:10 now. So if you sent me a casual comment, do apologise. We're going to have to cut them out and just leave it to the high-profile contenders this week.
Remember, fights Lareja next week in Spain for the European title.
Oh, do they? Oh, I didn't even think about that.
On Box Nation, I think, probably.
All right, okay. Thanks for mentioning that, Andy. And also shout out to the IFL video that's gone up tonight as well, which might be worth a watch.
I watched this before the pod started. I'm actually glad I was hungover and didn't say too much. Oh my fuck! The comments are funny as fuck. Like, Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna go off and watch that. I forgot about Skeet actually, to be honest with you. So we'll just have to review that next week. I'm not going to talk about it now. Okay, so we shall go on to the Bellew of the Weeks. First nomination from John Swan. He's nominated Gabriel Montoya, who has quit his podcast that he does with Steve Kim. And for a sequence of "I'd like to thank" tweets, as if many people gave a shit he was leaving the pod. Basically, he couldn't bear Kim constantly disrespecting his view and finally threw his toys out the pram, Andy. I never listened to that, to be honest.
So there was a beef between they two. Because what I was saying to the boys there on Saturday was I noticed my iTunes feed came up and he's back on the podcast with David Duenes, which was another podcast that he did. It was on the same kind of network. So I didn't care what the beef was there. So he's fell out with Steve Kim, has he?
Well, we seem to think so. We'll let you know if we hear more on that, I suppose. Devon Alexander's been up to his old tricks again. He's been going on about certain things. What is it? Going about dudes recycling chicks. He's not on about the gays anymore. He's on about other things. But Samuel A. Truck has nominated Devon anyway. Chris Blackman has nominated Jamie McDonald, talking about Inoue. I still don't know who Inoue is, but I'm going to smash him up, says McDonald. All right, then. Good luck with that. DJ Boxing Blog has nominated classic Eddie Hearn, talking pure shite about a possible Tyson Fury Joshua fight. Danny Flexen has nominated Ben Davison. Dave Allen versus Derek Chisora, mouth-watering fight, says Ben. Babs_SP has nominated the Amir Khan Box Tucker trial. We were talking about this earlier. The winner, I think, won some tickets to Khan GRECO. 2 tickets were on offer. Paul Key's Corner has nominated What Really Happened Between Joshua and Dubois in Sparring. Cringeworthy stuff from Spencer Fearon, no less. Spencer wins again, says Porky. Turbo Jackson has nominated Dan Raphael. I'm nominating Dan Wanks in women's handbags Raphael for saying missing one fight is enough for Canelo. Turbo Jackson always throws a good one in. Lukey Boxing, Golovkin versus Vanez Martirosyan is a good fight, and don't be surprised if Vanez pulls off the upset. He's quite the little specimen, is this Lukey. Vitaly Klitschko _ has nominated him. David Law has nominated Dan Raphael. Raphael says Canelo got suspended long enough. He will miss an 8-figure payday. That's a real punishment, says Dan.
Clenbuterol himself.
Friggin' he's on everything else. Another proletarian has nominated the Guru. The Guru is a nonce who loves batting for jugs cheats.
Dan Raphael must sprinkle the clenbuterol on fucking cheeseburgers.
He's eating the tacos. He's just not eating the tacos with the clenbuterol in them.
Oh, yeah, he's going to get popped. Another proletarian has nominated El Guru. He says he's a nonce who loves batting for drugs cheats. The Guru responded, raging. That's not the first nomination for the Guru. Stay tuned. Anthony Galbraith, this was a good one. A few people nominated this one to me, including Lloyd Davis. Huey Fury is a big fan of Bolton Wanderers Football Club, or soccer club, as you would call it, Donny, but he doesn't seem to understand the ramifications of the weekend where my club Wolves could have won the championship by beating Bolton. Huey seemed to think that Bolton had a chance of winning the league. Cannot wait for this tomorrow, artificial Bolton. Bring back that trophy, said Huey. Wishing you all the best for tomorrow's game. Someone should have told Huey that if Bolton won, they wouldn't have won the league. So I don't think he quite knows what's going on there. That was quite a good one from Huey. Matt Simpson has nominated the Guru. I've just seen him in Belfast and asked him for my £10 for Bellew beating Hay, and he refused to pay. So, nomination for the Guru for that one. Rob Barnett has nominated Eddie Hearn for calling Phil LaGreco world class or fringe world class. What the actual fuck, says Rob.
That is it. Eddie Hearn's getting my vote. I don't give a fuck what else you could say. He is getting that fucking vote.
Michael J. Lawler has nominated the referee in a fight between Aaron Herrera and Raul Hinojosa. And he put the video up on the Boxing Asylum Facebook page. Herrera throws a load of punches and doesn't even land a single one. Hinojosa just ducks them all, and the referee jumps in and stops the fight. You think you've seen British stoppages? This was a Mexican stoppage. It was a bad one. Niall O'Connor, I'd like to nominate Eddie Hearn for suggesting that the Brook Khan fight is a Wembley Stadium fight that sells out in quote-unquote a nanosecond. This is the same Special K Brook who can't sell out the Ponds Forge Arena, says Niall. Declan Gaffin has nominated Haz Haroon, a regular contributor. That's why I've included him. He's got a blue tick, so he must be someone important. Errol Spence is ducking Amir Khan. Fact, says Haroon. He loves the attention, that guy. And a late nomination from Ben Thorns. Quite a few people were talking about Darren Barker's contribution last night. Late nomination for Darren Barker, says Ben. Barker apparently said, like him or not, Broner has a resume. He's a 4-weight world champion. Yeah, okay. Right, you've made your feelings known, Andy. You're going for Eduardo.
Yes,
calling the GRECO. I'm considering going for the Guru, actually. What do you think, Dave? Who are you going for?
I'm going for Broner's meltdown after the fight. Just came off like a little childish piece of shit. You wonder if that's any Kevin Cunningham influence, how he's calling everything gay now, just like Devin. Only a vagina when it is stretched can tighten back up, but when your anus is stretched out, you are destroyed.
Soft talking. I know you can do it, man. You got to. Man, shut that soft ass shit up, man. You ain't
Rob, you're getting good mileage out of that tonight.
No, I wanted to nominate AB, man. He's had an unbelievable week, right? No, apart from his assault on Jim Gray after the fight, that was just crude and unfunny, and when he said to Vargas about going head to head is gay, because Vargas said we can go right again now, we can go head to head. He's like, that's gay, that's gay, that's gay. Then he started on Jim Gray about the suit. He said, "Where you going on an old ass suit and all? Did you feel like
that was shit, wasn't it? That was rubbish."
And look at how he was dressed with that like fluffy purple and white robe coming out.
You don't want to be taking fashion advice about billions, but the fucker, he's I don't know if the most of the pod probably won't be familiar, but there's a character in America called Tekashi 6ix9ine. He's a rapper he's from the Bronx.
No, he's another beast altogether, Rob. I've been looking in on him. You think Broner's scum? I would actually want Broner to beat this guy up. This guy is another level altogether. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about him. He's loosely affiliated with the Bloods in New York. He's Mexican. He has rainbow hair, gold teeth, and an assortment of face tattoos. And at the ripe old age of 21, already has a conviction for being an ounce doing some kind of act with a 13-year-old.
Some girl was involved in a video that he was. Yeah, I've been doing some digging on him as well. Yeah.
It's a loose case, really. But he's the reprehensible character anyway, right? So anyway, Broner and him have been going off on social media at each other and calling each other names. So they had to have the press conference this week with extra security because they thought the Bloods were going to show up and chase Adrian Broner. And last night when he was having his fight with Vargas, the Barclays was surrounded by a load of Bloods because they were up on Snapchat as they do these days. So yeah,
it's so hard, man. They hard as fuck.
So shut that soft ass shit up. I thought that was great from Broner when he said to Ellerby this week. I really did get a laugh out of that. Like, first of all, you're not going to disrespect me, man. Shut that soft ass shit up.
We know from Floyd Sr. that if anyone's a soft ass in that camp, it's Ellerby.
Yeah, Ellerby's suit was unreal as well, man.
It doesn't like it's soft in the arse, though.
Oh man,
Jim Gray dealt with it well though, Rob. He's seen all that shit 100 times before over the years, hasn't he?
Yeah, don't try. I like that Jim Gray, when Broner tried to snatch the mic off me, he just gave him a look like, don't try to snatch the mic off me. I'm the fella who asked Mike Tyson why he bit off Evander Holyfield's ear a couple of minutes after he did it, right? Don't fucking try to come up here and grab the microphone, Broner. Shut that soft ass shit up. Yeah. Oh yeah, and one of the listeners sent one in for MJP. I didn't. This wasn't me this week, but Matthew Sibley sent this one in. He said, it says, true story. I was waiting for the hashtag Canelo GRECO post-fight press conference to begin, and someone said something funny, so I laughed. And it opens the door and says, Michelle Phelps is here when she laughs. Ha! And a smile.
I saw that one.
Oh yeah, that was top-notch insight behind the scenes stuff there. Really know what's going down now. But yeah. So yeah, good week.
Oh, yes, it is. It's a good week. Broner from Rob. Then, Ozzy, you got any nominations, or do you want to cut straight to the chase?
Edward Hearn for his Phil LaGreco comments. If the guy's just a fucking fraudster, utter fraud.
He doesn't care though. Telling a lie doesn't seem to hold him back. No, like he's Teflon.
It's what I mean. It's just he says it with such a straight face. It's like he believes his own comments. Yeah, he's not elite level, but like he's backing himself up there. But he's fringe world class. I'd just love to someone just say, "Can you just explain why you think that?" And what would he do then? What would he actually do?
Well, whoever asked it wouldn't be sitting at ringside the next week, would they?
Well, do you know what? Ben was saying before, he only gets a few minutes at the end. And I genuinely believe that is why people do not question him. It's because they're in fear of saying, right, you're banned or you're not coming. So they'll just bow down, and keep it easy. Oh, what do you think of the fight? What do you think of this? And the probing questions simply won't be asked. And then the ones at IFL and stuff like that, they'll rarely ask them. unless they have no choice but to ask them. And even then, they ask them in a way where it's not, like, well, why do you think this? They make it into some kind of joke and laugh about it. So you never get a straight answer from him ever.
Finally, to you, Donnie. It looks like it's gonna be Eddie. I'm gonna go for Huey Fury. I thought his was was funny, but what do you think?
Oh, me?
You're the only Donnie here.
Oh, I didn't hear you say Donnie. Sorry, you cut off for a second. Well, first of all, I just wanted to throw this out there. I'm not going to vote for him, but did we mention the Shep nomination or no?
No, Shep's not been mentioned. Go ahead, Donnie.
Oh yeah, so he had tweeted out that he was going to make a bet on Khan by points because Khan hasn't knocked anybody down since he's been at 147. To which I responded, he put down Luis Colasso 3 times, and he was like, "Well, I still think Khan on points." And then, of course, Khan blitzed him in 40 seconds. So then I give him a little bit of a ribbing there on.
Surprised he didn't report you.
Pardon?
I'm surprised he didn't report your account or something.
Oh yeah. No, I didn't post his picture. But anyways, now I'm gonna go for Hearn. Yeah, that's. I mean, Hearn is like he's like the Sugar Ray Robinson, really, of Bellew of the Week. It's just a gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, I mean, it's
a bad one.
It's almost not fair at this point, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, that was world class Phil LaGreco. I mean, I'm a huge Khan fan, but I'm also I can't say that with a straight face. Only Eddie Hearn can tell those type of lies and like look as if he actually believes them and wants you to as well.
Ozzy, did you want to say anything before we close?
No, nothing.
No problem. Right, we'll finish up. Congratulations, Eddie, for winning. Right, I want to get out of here before Andy. I don't want Andy dying while we're on the pod in case they were somehow culpable. I don't know where the legalities lie, Andy. Hopefully, if it's going to happen after the show.
I don't know, mate. I just want to go to my pit and just sleep. Thank fuck I'm off tomorrow, by the way. Thank Christ.
Shut that soft. That's some soft ass shit. Shut that soft ass.
Andy, thanks for coming on because I know the absolute state you're in over the weekend. So you've done well to last 2 and somewhat hours with us. Thank you for that.
Just the hardcore way, man. It's the mentality nowadays,
That's the way of us. Thank you to Andy Patterson. Also, thank you to Donnie, Dave, the hater Lowback. Gabe Lewis, farewell, cunt, says Gabe Lewis. Farewell to you as well, sir. Ozzy Smith, Rob Kelly. Also, Smido was on with us, Dominic, Joe O'Neill, Ben, and Jerry Belmontes. Thanks for joining us. To Jerry, good luck with your comeback. We shall catch you all, listeners, next week. Bye.